Best Ball Breakfast is back after our Memorial Day hiatus. We got a great show on tap today. I'll be doing a solo draft to kick things off. And then we actually have a guest from LegUp, Kyle Dvorchak. You guys know him from NBC Rotoworld. He's going to be filling in for Patty Millions. We got Leone, of course, holding it down at the noon time slot. And then my pal, Ben Gretch of Ship Chasing, Stealing Bananas, of great Substack fame, will be joining us batting cleanup for that final draft. I'm Pete. It's Best Ball Breakfast. Let's get to it.
It really isn't that hard, guys. You just go top two, win it, win it.
Okay, I think we can be done here at running back.
You only have 3 running backs. This roster is littered with game theory, arbitrage, exploits, and theoretic reasoning.
Bro, light mode, my eyes, dude.
I don't know. I prefer that move more in a time box contest.
Bro, have you ever scrolled so far down that, like, there's no more names, bro?
Don't do drugs, kids. Draft and drive instead.
You can't have it both ways, dude. Quid pro quo.
All right, GMs all around. We're actually already off to the races here. I am in a BBM draft, 30 seconds. Tipped off some of you guys in the Discord there. So hopefully a few of you guys got in here. I think I see some familiar names. I see Crutches. I see JGFC. So yeah, we got the friends and family out today. Hope everyone is coming off of a lovely weekend. Going to get my bearings here, figure out what BBM draft number this is of mine, and then we'll get rolling here. I missed doing this show last week. There was a void in my life with no Best Ball Breakfast on Monday. It used to be a thing where, you know, on a holiday with a Monday, I could just move it, you know, because it was just like an hour draft or something. And now that it's like a 4-hour block, moving it to another day becomes untenable. So we had to let last week go, but excited to be back today with a good show. And we got a 103 here in Best Ball Mania, which generally means I get Barkley in these draft rooms. We'll see if we get Jefferson here at 3, depending what Zero Cool Legend does. Or no, Zero Cool Geno. My bad. Zero Cool Geno. Going to auto timeout Barkley. All right. We'll take Justin Jefferson's to start our day. I'm going to go and see how many BBM drafts I've done here so I can label this accordingly. This will be my 28th Best Ball Mania 6th draft, so we can get that going there for the people who are curious. And now that I got my bearings, I can see what's up in the chat. What's up, Notorious? Steve. Pius, yes, man is drafting before he's pouring. That's generally the MO around here. Well, maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's a bit of a balance. I do sometimes hop in the drafts right off the rip. Sometimes we get the coffee pour off the rip. But yes, we like to balance our range around here. Look at all the GMs flowing. How we doing here? Jack says he drafted a hound dog with me. Have you lost your wide receiver fastball? Ooh, accusations here. I don't even remember what I did in that draft, but I've been mixing up my draft structures a pretty good bit, and definitely more comfortable pushing wide receiver. So yeah, I do not remember what I did in that draft though. What is up, Jordan? Reference Jordan over on Swolecast the other day. Hosted us at what was the bar you worked at, Jordan? In Biloxi, but glad to see you popping up. No Cap Mac fasted my breakfast all week last week to show my respect for the week off of Best Ball Breakfast. Thank you. Yes, we were doing a little Best Ball Breakfast intermittent fasting there. What's up, Imwald? What's up, Garage? Copper prices. I haven't seen you around much either, other than trolling the good people on Twitter. You even got me. I think was it 2 years ago? Was it you did the Photoshop of your Calvin Ridley exposure? I think it's like 85%, and it got me for a second. Geez, not one of my finer moments on the internet. Let's pour some coffee though. I need some coffee. I have not had a drop today, so I am ready for it here. Get a nice hearty full pull to get us started here in this 30-second BBM draft. I'm actually going to switch up the draft board here. Need to drop off my screen and go from Chrome tab to window. How about this? Let's see if that looks a little better. And then, well, it'll look better when we get into the other rounds. Trying to see if we got anything interesting going here. Puka goes at 4. CeeDee Lamb goes 5. And CMC goes 6. So Lewin Brew gets Bijan at 7. And Frankie do 811 gets Gibbs at 8. Some interesting falls there. Otherwise, business as usual through the rest of the second round here. Michael asking, whose ranks am I using here? Just going by ADP for this one. Actually, I think I have the LegUp ranks in here, but I actually meant to do just raw dog this one for ADP. And then we'll do LegUp ranks with Dvorchak. We'll do ETR with Leone, of course. And then we can see what Gretch wants to do. Steve says CMC seems to be moving up. I've been noticing that too. I think that was one of Pat's predictions on, I don't know if it was ADP chasing or was it Davis's prediction? I can't keep all of these straight anymore, but I know a lot of people anticipating CMC moving up here. And I can definitely see that happening. We're about to pick at 210. I started with Justin Jefferson here. Bucky Irving goes, I'm happy to take Jonathan Taylor here with Justin Jefferson. I like T. Higgins, but a lot of the wide receivers that I can get in the early third, this all feels like such a flat tier to me that I'm generally willing to prioritize Bucky, Taylor, Achane, whoever falls back to me there. And then we can see what comes back around. CD Harrington says, I don't think I can go CMC that high. That's fair. I thought you were going to say I can't see him going that high. I'm like, well, you can look right here. He went at pick 6. Yeah, I think there'll be a little bit more ADP resistance. I think the counterpoint that I've brought up is just the lack of trust we as fantasy players have in the 49ers when it comes to injury reporting is pretty severe. You know, we've all got burned last year. Their lack of reporting, their, soft lying is essentially what I would call it. So I think there's always going to be a little bit of a doubt in how they're handling CMC. But if we continue to get the drumbeat over the course of the offseason, full go, no tomfoolery, I think he will inch up a good bit. The issue is you do have a pretty strong resistance of these wide receivers here. Like a lot of drafters are not going to take CMC over Malik Neighbors, over Nico, over Amon-Ra. So that will always be kind of an issue as far as him really pushing up into that range. I think there'll probably be a decent amount of volatility on his ADP from draft to draft. I think ultimately he'll still kind of hover in this like 110, 111 range. But yeah, I could see a huge push if it got to that point. All right. I've been basically not doing many elite tight end builds lately. I've just been kind of experimenting with way more wide receiver and running back heavy builds to start. But we get Trey McBride sliding here to 3-3. So we'll pull the trigger on him past ADP and we'll start this draft. Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, and Trey McBride here at the top. Tim says, me and Gretch should use Siegel's rankings. We can if Gretch wants. It is Gretch's draft. I will propose that to Gretch if he'd like. But it is the Gretch draft. And we can see what he wants to do. I have been meaning to do that, though. Somebody remind me next week. I'll load in the Gretch or the Gretch ranks, the Sean ranks, and we can have some fun. Did Siegel retire from Best Ball Breakfast for this year? He did, but no, he is. He posted a massive article over on RotoViz a week or so ago. He still does Stealing Bananas regularly with Gretch, but he had to tighten up his schedule this year. And one of the things on the chopping block was unfortunately Best Ball Breakfast. This is fine. Have you ventured into the Superflex streets at all yet? I haven't, but I plan to hopefully multiple times this week. I actually need to message John and Nez. I'd like to do a Superflex puppy for Off and On the Clock tomorrow. So I assume they'll be down for that. Maybe we even do it on Ship Chasing. And once I kind of rip the Band-Aid off of having done no Superflex drafts, I will be joining you guys in those streets. I've been prioritizing Eliminator drafts when I have free time, you know, when I'm not doing, you know, my pugs or my hound dogs and whatnot. What's up, Steph? Speaking of Steph, I just booked my resident grader for After Dark this weekend. So that'll be, I think we said we're going to do it Saturday night. So Steph will be joining me on After Dark. We can hear how her drafting season is going, and maybe we'll have to draft a team together. You know, I think we'll definitely have to do that. You know, there's been some bit of an adversarial relationship, you know, her giving me bad grades, me resenting those bad grades. Maybe we need to come together and draft a team together now on Saturday night. Kiss My Third Leg says good morning. Good morning to you as well. Good morning to you as well. Who did we have on After Dark this weekend? It was Numi. Had Numi on After Dark. Had a great show over the weekend. If you guys are YouTube members in the Best Ball Value Hounds tier or higher, you can check out that show with Numi. Let's see here. Daniels does fall. I'm not gonna scoop it up here though. I was already not wanting to do the McBride thing. Let's see here. Are there any correlations I want to mess with? Detroit, Jacksonville, Cincinnati. Zay Flowers is a guy that I've been trying to get a little heavier on in this range. So we'll go ahead and pull him up. I do prefer him to Sutton and Metcalf. So that's one where I'm willing to kind of bounce around the ADP in this range. So we'll add Zay Flowers here. Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers, Trey McBride start. Tim says you should do a best ball breakfast one week where it's different contests than BBM, and Eliminator, a weekly sprints, a marathon, and a sprint. I personally don't hate that idea. People would probably not be happy with me. Just based on the feedback I generally get, people like it when we draft BBM teams. I do try to use Off and On the Clock, other shows to highlight some of those contests, but I do like that as maybe a one-off idea, maybe a little multi-sport draft league game there. Let's see here. We are back on the clock. I think I am debating here between like a Pickens, a Waddle. Let's do we have any bye week stuff we can keep eyes on? Let's do Jalen Waddle. I do like Pickens a lot. I've been taking Pickens a lot in this range, but I'm just letting the hands fly this morning. You know, no ranks, off of ADP, just bouncing around. They say these idiot streamers don't have player takes. We're just getting some guys we want to click this morning. Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Trey McBride to start here. And obviously, Zay Flowers, Lamar's off the board, but we got some good stacking options late. McCarthy to Kyler Murray there. Don't mind doing a Indianapolis QB with Jonathan Taylor either. And we will keep rolling here in this room. The what gets a nice, they drafted, they took Terry McLaurin at the turn and then get Jaden Daniels to come all the way back to them from the 101, which is nice. Purple Yosh says, I can't wait to get in the Eliminator streets. Yes, I have a love-hate with the Eliminator streets right now in that I've been getting my ass kicked in those rooms. Let me see how many of these I've done. Where are my eliminators here? I've done 4. I've done 4 of these, and I have not drafted a single eliminator team that I like. I've just not been prepared for the positional runs. Obviously, wide receivers end up getting pushed down in those rooms. The quarterback runs, the running back runs are much more pronounced and something I've been having to adapt to. But I'm very excited about the format, very excited about that tournament. And so I will continue to put entries in there, and hopefully I will find my footing. because I have not been doing well in those draft rooms so far. What's up, Connor? What's up, Deuce? Crutches up to 26 eliminators. Impressive numbers. Nolan says, am I the only one who prefers the old eliminator format? No, I've heard other people who like the old one. I love the new one. Personally, I think the head-to-head element is going to be so unbelievably fun. I was actually talking with Numi about it over the weekend. Like the fact that you could be in week 6 and randomly get paired up with someone else from the Deposit Kingdom Discord or one of your arch nemesis on Twitter, and to have a clean head-to-head sweat in the middle of the season is just so fun. So I'm personally a fan. I understand the counter arguments. I understand that it introduces more variance when it's just a head-to-head matchup. So I can certainly see why some people would like the other format, but I personally think this is fun. Let's see here. Do we want to grab David Montgomery? I haven't gotten a lot of David Montgomery lately, even though I'll probably draft him on a Leone team. The ETR ranks are pretty high on him, but let's grab David Montgomery right at ADP here. And now we have JT and David Montgomery as our running backs. We got Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers, and Jalen Waddle. We also get a nice little mini correlation there with David Montgomery and Justin Jefferson playing in week 17. I should also mention the draft caddy. You can see here I got the week 15, 16, 17 matchups in here overlaid. But even bigger news for the draft caddy. It is now in the Google Chrome store. So anyone who was a sub before was having to manually add it to Chrome as an extension. You'd have to load an unpacked zip file, etc. It was like a little bit cumbersome. Now it's in the Google store. So that makes it so much easier. And now you never have to update it. Those updates will come directly from the devs to Google. So if you guys are Draft Caddy subs or you were interested in getting that, you can now get access to that directly through the Chrome extension store, which is pretty exciting news there. So we got our one elite tight end here. I don't think there's anything with quarterback I'm going to be doing at this pick. Has Ricky Pearsall been falling a little bit because of the hamstring stuff? Let's do another mini correlation here. Let's do Matthew Golden. Opposite Zay Flowers obviously opens up another quarterback out with Jordan Love. And I've been wanting to kind of split my bets here in between the Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden with those ADPs back to back. I think this will be a nice range here to continue to scoop up wide receivers. So Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery at running back, Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Matthew Golden at wide receiver, Trey McBride at tight end here in this BBM draft. We got a couple new YouTube members joining here. Brian, welcome. Tanner, welcome. Been really trying to stack up the perks for you guys who are YouTube members. Can do a full rundown here. You get the weekly After Dark shows if you're a Best Ball Value Hound or higher. There's also the Hand Builder and OptoBro tier, which gets utilized a little bit more in season with the DFS element and getting the cram shows. But you get those After Dark shows. Now with the addition of Best Ball Bash on Wednesdays, that show in that chat is gated just for YouTube members. So only YouTube members can comment, and only YouTube members are entered into a drawing to come on and draft with me. Neil Farley, who some of you guys know, he won the first seat this past Wednesday. Had a blast having him jump on and draft with me. Be spinning the wheel again on Wednesday. Any YouTube members in the chat that are available to draft at 1 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday will be eligible. So you get that. You get access to the private channel, Best Ball Breakfast channel in the Deposit Kingdom Discord, where I'll tip you guys off when I hop in these stream drafts in case you're trying to get in front of that. So trying to hook you guys up with all kinds of perks there for you YouTube members. We got Nick says, I brought out my BBB tank yesterday for the morning walk draft for the official start of the summer. Yes, I'm rocking my Best Ball Breakfast tank here. We also have some pocket tees in the store. I actually don't have one of those yet myself. Have been meaning to order one of the navy blue Best Ball Breakfast pocket tees. And if there's ever any specific merch requests, let me know. Like if you really wanted the Best Ball Breakfast duck on a dad hat, you could let me know that, and I will try to make that happen. All right, we are about to pick again at 8:10 here. We'll see what JMZ does in front of us. We have a 2-4-1 build. Kyler is here if we want to lock up that stack. I was going to take Brian Robinson if he fell to me there. I think I will use this opportunity to lock up Kyler. I'm feeling in pretty good shape overall with this team. And even though we have the later stack outs with some of these guys, because I'm not taking too much Trey McBride right now, let's go ahead and just lock up that stack there. And now we got the 1-2-4-1, Kyler and McBride, JT and Montgomery at running back, Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Matthew Golden at wide receiver. Kiss My Third Leg said, yes, I'll be at work maybe next time. Yes. And I do realize it's not ideal for people in the middle of the workday. One idea someone had pitched to me is maybe one time I flex the show to an evening. So yeah, maybe we could at one point this summer, for the people who aren't able to draft at that time, we could do an evening slot as well. So that is something on my radar. I know it's not the ideal time, but I'm pretty protective of my evenings these days as well, just doing the dad life stuff and going to bed earlier. So it's kind of hard for me to do that on the reg, but I certainly hear those of you who are wanting to be available for that. All right, let's see here. So Luther Burden also falling a little bit these days with a soft tissue injury. Trey Harris could be in the mix for us. We could take Jordan Mason as well. I kind of want to go running back here, and I don't love a lot of the options coming directly after that. We do have Justin Jefferson on this team, might be able to build out a little bit of a week 17 stack around that. So let's go ahead and grab Jordan Mason. And now we will get up to our 3 running backs here with JT, David Montgomery, and Jordan Mason. Imwald said, I was curious to hear more about Neil's weekly winner strategy. Seems like he's thought about it a lot. Yeah, maybe I need to do a after dark with Neil later this summer. I think that would be a good idea. And yes, Fantasy Football Garage, I will do doctor's notes as well. If you guys need to get out of any responsibilities on Wednesday afternoons or Mondays or anytime during the business hours that I'm doing shows, I am happy to provide that service. Brandon says, if you're doing a tank redesign, I'd love an 80s inspired neon colorway. I've been feeling that look lately. Okay. I think I kind of like what you're picking up. Or what you're laying down there. I'm picking it up. Let me think about that. I'm going to make a note right now here. Neon merch item. I'll see what I can do. Purple Yosh. So does someone need StreamYard to participate in the bash? No. I use StreamYard to host the stream, but you can think about it as if it were like a Zoom link or a Google Meet link. You get a link and it'll pop up on your phone. You don't even need to have a special app or anything. It's all browser based. If you're doing it on your phone, if you're doing it on your computer, it takes place in Chrome. So yeah, very, very simple there on the tech side. And like I said, if you need to use your phone as your mic and camera, that's perfectly fine as well. Obviously a little harder to kind of see the board, but I'm happy to read the board off of you if that's how you need to go about it. Iceman also asking about Superflex drafts. Yeah, someone asked me that at the top of the show. I have not yet, but I'm going to be diving in this week. Yes, the doctor notes are members only perks. I can't write doctor's notes for everyone. You are going to have to pay me at least a monthly fee for that service, but I will include that service for YouTube members. Do you need a microphone? No, if you have like my Mac laptop, I've done shows on that before without a proper, microphone, and the audio is still fine. If if you have an iPhone, the audio is fine on there. As long as you're not somewhere where it's like windy or loud, most devices will be okay for audio. Can we draft and drive on the bash? So here's the thing. I actually think you could do this in that I'm going to be the one doing the drafting. As long as you promise to keep your hands at 10 and 2, you could talk to me while you're on the phone for that. Let's see here. Rashid Shaheed or Marvin Mims in the mix for us here. Zach Charbonnet, ETN. What do we want to do? Let's grab Shaheed here. Shaheed falls past ADP to pick 118. We'll go ahead and grab him as our 5th wide receiver here. Steven, you have an iMac, you'll be fine. You will be fine. Brandon says, can I have my dogs barking constantly in the background? There's already precedent for that on the channel, so it would be hard for me to say no since I've already allowed it once. Christopher says, can we still donate to get impression requests? Yes, but depending on how hard or problematic the impressions are, it will cost you more to get that. Let's grab another running back here. Sharps for me is kind of the end of a running back tier here. Do I even believe that? By ADP, he certainly is. Maybe I don't actually believe that take, but I am going to take Charbonnet here past ADP. I've been liking my running back rooms when I do get 4 or 5 before, this range, basically by pick 130 or so. I was kind of walking back the Charbonnet take because I do think you can make an argument that guys like Spears, Benson, some of these guys who are in clear kind of secondary handcuff roles have a lot of the similar kind of floor ceiling combos as Charbonnet. We're just essentially paying a little bit of a premium with Sharps because we've seen it. Like, we know exactly what it looks like when Kenneth Walker's out and he's getting the starter reps. But yeah, I think in my heart of hearts, I probably view him similarly as some of those other guys. But I think it's fair that he's priced just a bit ahead because, with a guy like Trey Benson, who I still like, there's just that little bit of unknown that we don't know exactly would the team fully turn over the keys to him. Is he good enough to, operate in a bell cow capacity? So this is me talking it out about Zach Sharps. Nez says he throws up in this range of the draft every time. Yes. If you're not selecting quarterbacks or tight ends in this range, and mainly just quarterbacks, because kind of the sweet spot for tight ends is around later. Like if you don't have a quarterback you need here, it's pretty painful. Instant reaction. Yeah, you gotta check yourself. You're filling air, you're throwing out takes, and sometimes a take comes out and you're like, do I even believe that? So that's my promise to you guys. I will fact check my own takes in real time. Jack says, if we call you a douche, will we still get our cut of BBM winnings? Yes. This is the thing about Best Ball Bash. You come on the show, and the fine print is if the team makes it to the finals. Like I can't deal with like Venmoing everybody like $12.50 or whatever like a min cash is. But if a team makes it to the finals, you get 50% of it, even if you come on the show and call me a douche. Most of the time, though, people who are paying YouTube members don't have the balls to come on the show and call me a douche, but you are more than welcome to. I can handle it. I've built up a thick skin to that kind of commentary now. Yeah, this is an interesting take, or not take, but Fantasy Football Garage passing on this reporting. I saw this too. I've heard Mike McDonald is planning to use 2 running back sets at a good rate for the Seahawks backfield. I'm always like a little nervous of these kind of reports. It feels a little bit like, X running back is lining up in the slot and is going to be used more as a receiver. One of those like fanciful things that coaches say as they're, daydreaming in June. But then when push comes to shove in the NFL season, they're not doing it quite as much. But I do think that would make things more interesting as well. And, Zach Charbonnet is a really good pass catcher. So I could see scenarios where those kind of formations could work. All right. I think we lock up JJ McCarthy here. We had kind of built out this little Minnesota stack with Mason and Jefferson with the David Montgomery bring back. I think this is a nice spot here, especially because Jordan Love went as well. And I'm still not opposed to getting a 3 quarterback team on this build. But I like getting McCarthy here as my QB2 with Jefferson and Mason. So here's the team so far through 12 rounds. Kyler Murray, JJ McCarthy at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, Jordan Mason, Zach Charbonnet at running back, wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Matthew Golden, and Rashid Shaheed. And we got Trey McBride at tight end. Let's see here. I think if Zero Cool doesn't take Benson, I think I'm going to take Benson. And now I kind of have these, I like these stacks, right? We got essentially the same stack. We have the quarterback, their number 1 pass catcher, and the backup running back. So Kyler with Trey McBride and then Trey Benson. And then we have McCarthy with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Mason. So we have a 2-5-5-1 and probably going to end up being done at running back here. I think we could always go 6 if we really had a faller we liked or, the wide receiver options were particularly gross. But yeah, feeling good about this build so far here. All right. Let's see here. Any other interesting builds cooking in here? Any interesting picks? I haven't been paying too close attention. We see Marvin Mims has been falling a good bit. I know we did a ship chasing draft the other day and we were able to get Mims around this same range. That was one of my predictions when we were looking at playing the ADP riser game last week on ship chasing. We each did a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end that we thought would rise a significant amount over the course of the offseason. And I picked Pat Bryant. And I think part of it is Mims's ADP sliding down with Bryant's rising. I think is going to be something we'll probably see there. The issue is there are just so few wide receivers who go in this range, from rounds 10 through 12. And so I think you get the dynamic where there's drafters in that range who need wide receivers, and you're just naturally going to gravitate to the best available via ADP. And that's always going to kind of keep some of these prices holding. But based on the drafts I've been, it does seem like Mims is going to continue to slide a little bit. Brandon says, did I get a chance to listen to Pat and Eric's conversation this weekend about 3-6-6-3 builds? Well, I did not, but funny you say that. I don't know when they release this, but I wrote a whole article on Fantasy Life this week about my preferred construction right now being 3 quarterback, 3 tight end builds. And that was why I was kind of frustrated when I took Trey McBride, because all of the teams I've been drafting over the weekend have been 3 late quarterback, 3 late tight end builds. And I've been kind of forcing it just to see how I like it. And part of it came too over on the Deposit Kingdom channel. Buck, one of my editors and producers, gave me an extreme challenge to not draft a single quarterback or tight end until round 11 or later. And I think that's a little too rigid in general, but I have really liked the builds where I think my favorite has been 4 running backs and 5 wide receivers through 9. And then, letting the draft fall to you from there. But yeah, I've been really liking the late quarterback, late tight end builds, and I got to check out that podcast. Are the Patriots serious about potentially releasing Diggs? I don't think so. I don't really see how they could. Let's see here. I'm going to reach ahead of ADP to grab Michael Wilson. At 5 wide receivers, I need to collect some it's going to get really thin quickly. And the fact that I have the correlation here with Kyler Murray, I think means I should just lock up Michael Wilson as a 6 wide receiver here. But yes, I completely agree with this take. The Pats can't afford to release Diggs. And it's also like, don't you know what you're getting into with Diggs? I mean, Diggs has been doing this kind of shit his entire career, more or less. I'm pretty sure they knew this was in the range of outcomes of behavior. And this was their big signing, right? Like they tried to get Calvin Ridley. What was it? 2 years ago, they tried to get Chris Godwin this year. Like they can't get any free agent wide receiver to come sign there. So you might just have to settle for one who's willing to do pink cocaine on a boat with a bunch of girls. Like that's what they're able to get at this point. That's what they're going to have to live with. All right, let's make another selection here. Kyler, JJ McCarthy, probably in the tight end range here. Ertz, Freiermuth, Hunter Henry. We don't have any like great options here. Let's see. Do we want to do, I do a lot of Henry. We can do Zach Ertz. Trey McBride and Zach Ertz. The Zach Ertz, the man who once famously passed the baton to Trey McBride and allowed Trey McBride to blossom into a real fantasy contributor. I did not feel strongly about that selection there. Boston radio is just bad. Yeah, there were some hilarious clips. I saw some of the TikTok clips about those guys talking about the Diggs situation, and it was killing me. Think the Diggs reports were warning shots to Diggs. Yeah, it kind of feels like when I warn my toddler not to do something, where I'm like, April, if you do that again, we're not going to get to go to the playground, even though I know deep down we're still fucking going to the playground. I think those are kind of the threats the Patriots are sending to Diggs through the media. We're going to cut you, buddy. No, we're not going to cut you. But what if we did? Text the father-in-law. What's he say? It's actually my mother-in-law who has much hotter Patriots takes. Oh, I'm sure she's livid about the Diggs thing at this point. Let me service the audio listeners here through 15 rounds. We got a 2-5-6-2 going. Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy at quarterback. We got Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, Jordan Mason, Zach Charbonnet, Trey Benson at running back. Wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Matthew Golden, Rashid Shaheed, Michael Wilson. Tight end, Trey McBride, and Zach Ertz. With 3 more picks, we're pretty balanced here positionally. Definitely going to be getting at least 1 more wide receiver. And then, this could be a 3 quarterback, 3 tight end type of team based on, Kyler first quarterback pick at 94. I guess Shuck would be the quarterback we would tack on. We have Rashid Shaheed. We could build out something there, but we're going to have some flexibility, I think, with these last few picks. And this is kind of the spot too, where I'm like, I think you can go a 3rd tight end, even with McBride. I think you can go a 6th running back, even with kind of a JT Montgomery start. So we'll just see how this board falls. It's looking like the the tight ends might be the best positional value coming up here. Hunter Henry, Mason Taylor, Cade Otton, Dalton Schultz still on the board. Seeing if we have any bring back stuff. Cincinnati opposite Arizona. We don't have any Cincinnati players yet. We got that Detroit, Minnesota game stat going already. Cade Otton is, what do we got? Cade Otton is opposite Jalen Waddle in week 17. But Hunter Henry falling. Wow. So we're out here. Drafters are out here taking Terrence Ferguson ahead of Hunter Henry. I think I might just value hound a little Hunter Henry here at 190. I think we're just going to take Hunter Henry here. Let's do it. So there's one luxury pick. We're going to need to figure out. I kind of like the Tyler Shuck grabbing a third quarterback here with Shaheed. And then it's really just figuring out a wide receiver. I guess we could do Iosivas as the week 17 bring back. I don't mind that. Yoshi coming back on the Kyler stuff. Most of the people building out Cincinnati and Arizona game stacks are doing it through the most premium pieces. What if I do the most contrarian Bengals Arizona stack, and it features no Jamar Chase, no T. Higgins, no Chase Brown, no Joe Burrow, and we just play the Arizona side with a little Iosivas bring back? I know I could give a little howl for the Hunter Henry. The problem is the ADP values in this range don't actually matter that much. You know, a player at 170 versus a player at 190 historically don't have any, you know, difference in their ranges of outcomes. But I'm staring at the numbers here, and it is 20 picks past ADP. So, ow! Upside tight end 3 Ferguson is pretty nice for the idea. Yeah, but it's kind of like one of those things of like Terrence Ferguson could be anything. He could be Hunter Henry. You know, it's like Terrence Ferguson, like the upside profile for him is like, even if he does hit, isn't he hitting in the same way Hunter Henry has been hitting? It's not like there's a path to him being some monster target hog. He's like behind 2 of the biggest target hogs in the NFL. So I understand conceptually the idea of your tight end 3 being a mystery box rookie. I just don't know if Terrence Ferguson over Hunter Henry checks out for me. Okay, you're joking, but I took it in earnest. Let's do the Iosivas thing. I wanted another wide receiver, and I do love me a little cheap bring back. We also get the bonus here of a week 16 and a week 15 bring back here. So Iosivas just checking all the boxes. Close your eyes and envision this playoff stretch. Baltimore, Cincinnati, week 15 shootout. Zay Flowers, Iosivas just exchanging blows. 2 of the greatest wide receivers in the league going back and forth. Then you get to week 16. You get another Cincinnati, Miami shootout. Jalen Waddle and Andrei Iosivas just going back and forth, blow for blow, big play for big play. 2 of the greatest wide receivers in the NFL duking it out. And then you get to week 17, this beautiful team, and all of a sudden it's Andrei Iosivas and Trey McBride just ping-ponging monster plays, catch for catch, touchdown for touchdown. One of the greatest wide receivers and tight ends duking it out in week 17. Do you buy that story? Because that's the story I'm telling right now. Every night I go to bed and I pray for people who mention Jermaine Burton. When they say Jermaine Burton Sizzin, I pray for these people. I pray for them. Look at this. We got the chat. You know what? I actually appreciate this. I got the chat telling me yards per route run statistics on Iosivas here. And I miss this because I feel like a lot of the discourse in best ball these days is some of the dumbest fucking things I've ever heard. I want to get back to arguing about elite tight end. I want to get back to arguing about 0 RB. I want to get back to arguing about week 16 versus week 17. I want to get back to arguing about whether his yards per route run on a limited sample matters in relation to his contingent upside if there was an injury in the Bengals backfield. I want to talk about Jermaine Burton being better at slots than he is at playing slot wide receiver. Those are the things I want to talk about in my America. I also need more coffee. What's up, Lutz? What's up, Lutz? We got one more pick on this team. We got a 2-5-7-3. Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy. We got a big Arizona stack here with Benson, Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, and then a bring back with Iosivas. We got the JJ McCarthy, Jordan Mason, Justin Jefferson with the David Montgomery bring back. Let me get a little crowdsourcing here. Do you guys like the idea of Tyler Shuck as a third quarterback, stacked up with Shaheed, obviously? Or should I take another wide receiver flyer to get to 8 wide receivers? We could do like a Ty Felton, and basically build out a similarly big bet on the Vikings? Let me get the thoughts. This is genuinely up to the chat to help me decide this. Tyler Shuck or a guy like Ty Felton, if you have another wide receiver you think makes more sense for this team, I'm all ears. We got some shucks. There's not a lot at wide receiver. Like by ADP, AD Mitchell, Jalen Royals, Iomenar, Amari Cooper, Roman Wilson, Jalen Tolbert, Mike Williams, Torrey Horton. Oh man, can someone tabulate? I should have done a proper poll. Okay. Tyler, this is a great string here. This makes it easy. Tyler Shuck got drafted. And then someone took Jermaine Burton. This is a Cincinnati Bull right here. Joe Burrow, Taj Brooks, and Jermaine Burton on this team. Here, I thought I was drafting all the shitters on Cincinnati. All right, we can take Ty Felton. It's probably a fucking 0. But I don't mind it. Third round pick. People forget. Was he at the very end of the third round? Absolutely. But I think if you want to, you can arbitrage anything in best ball. But if you're going to arbitrage third round picks, why would you take Kyle Williams at pick? Where did Kyle Williams here go? Kyle Williams at pick 104, a fellow third round pick, or Ty Felton 110 picks later at 214. That's how you do arbitrage. JGFC, you do not have to apologize for taking Tyler Shuck. You never have to apologize. There have been some snipes in my day. There have been some snipes that I've lost my cool over, that I've been upset about. But I've never, and I will never, this is my word to you guys, if you ever catch me getting upset about a Tyler Shuck snipe, I think that's it for me. I think that's where I have to draw the line. All right. I am going to pour another cup of coffee, and then we can review this team in whole. My 28th Best Ball Mania team. But no, for real on the Ty Felton stuff, I wrote this article a couple weeks ago for Fantasy Life where I specifically was looking at the third round wide receivers and looking at their ADPs and also looking at their ranking in Dwayne's supermodel. And it is interesting. There's an obvious reason why we push up a guy like Kyle Williams, into the 11th round or going at pick 104. But when you actually look at his model rating within Dwayne's supermodel, all of these guys are bunched up in a similar range. And what Dwayne's supermodel does is it's trying to predict, certain ranges of fantasy scoring for these players throughout their career. And obviously players with a similar score project for a similar range of outcomes. And all of these third round receivers, I'll list them off to you. Kyle Williams, supermodel rating 69. Nice. Jalen Knoll, supermodel rating 69. Nice again. Pat Bryant, rating 68. Isaac Tesla, 68. Ty Felton, 64. So a little lower. Savion Williams, 66. But all of these guys in the same range here, there are legit arbitrage options on some of these guys where draft capital is more or less equal there too. So it would not surprise me if a Tesla, a Ty Felton, a Savion Williams has as good a year, if not a better year, than some of these other more expensive guys, specifically Kyle Williams. All right, this is number 28. Today's date is 6/2. My God, it's already 6/2. This is BBB. We did a 2-5-8-3. And we have Arizona and Minnesota on this. And for my audio listeners here, I'm going to take a sip of coffee and then tell you this team. 2 quarterbacks, Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy. 5 running backs, Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, Jordan Mason, Zach Charbonnet, Trey Benson. 8 wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Matthew Golden, Rashid Shaheed, Michael Wilson, Andrei 0.63 yards per route run, Iosivas, and Ty Felton. And then 3 tight ends, Trey McBride, Zach Ertz, and Hunter Henry. I like this team. It would have been kind of nice to have gotten like a Tua or a Jordan Love at a really cheap price for a third quarterback. That wasn't in the cards. So I think we can certainly rock a 2 quarterback build here. I think the running back room is strong. JT is the true anchor RB, Montgomery as the touchdown merchant, and then 3 guys who have massive contingent upside and probably a smidge of standalone value in Mason, Sharps, Benson. Our high-end wide receiver firepower with Jefferson, Flowers, Waddle looks good. Then we got some big play merchants with Golden, Shaheed, and Wilson, and then played some kind of correlated angles there at the end with Iosivas and Felton. And then the tight end room is very solid. McBride, Ertz, and Henry. McBride can get all the receptions, while Zach Ertz and Hunter Henry theoretically fall into the end zone here. The Tyler Conklin snipe tilt was the best. Yes, I think that was a splash play episode. I think that was Paul, right? I was inverted way back when. And it was a pre-NFL draft contest. And he took Tyler Conklin like 3 rounds ahead of ADP because it was a divisional correlation. I lost it. Lutz is not my official grader, but gives it a B+. Cross Country despises the person who invented work during Best Ball Breakfast. Me too. Do you have a favorite team drafted so far? I don't know if I do, but I've also haven't spent the time to think if I have a favorite team drafted. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to be Liam Murphy and just fall asleep each night, furiously masturbating to a team I drafted on April 30th. But I haven't really gone through my teams to know what my favorites are. I will say this team I drafted, the Buck Challenge video, and I think I have it pinned in the chat here. It's the most recent video over on the Deposit Kingdom channel. I had a lot of fun drafting this team. It was the challenge, and I won't spoil the whole thing, so maybe I won't show the whole roster and the really disgusting pick, but I'll tell you what the challenge was from Buck. I couldn't take any player on my most drafted list, my top 20 exposures in BBM. So immediately there, all my favorite clicks are gone. I couldn't take a quarterback or wide receiver a quarterback or tight end until round 11. So my first 10 picks had to be running backs or wide receivers. I also couldn't take any running backs after round 10. So all 5 of my running backs had to be before round 10. I also had to reach for 3 Tampa Bay Bucks players as penance for having none of them in my top exposure. So I had to reach for 3 Tampa Bay Bucks. But it also meant I couldn't take Baker, right? Because the quarterback stipulation. So it was a very convoluted, hard challenge. It almost went perfectly. I almost pulled it off. You'll have to watch the video to see a truly disgusting pick I had to make at the end. But let me actually indulge this. Let's see here, because was it a hound dog or a pug the other day where I really liked the team? And let's see if I can find this team. We'll do a little masturbation here. So here's a 3-5-7-3 build that I really liked. I'll read this off. We're going to do this. So the quarterbacks, Stroud, Bryce Young, and Daniel Jones. The running backs, Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, Tony Pollard, and Jaylen Warren. So a lot of capital at running back. Pick 36, pick 60, pick 61, pick 84, pick 109. 7 wide receivers, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, Tet McMillan, Josh Downs, Jalen Knoll, Michael Wilson, Keenan Allen, and also 3 tight ends, Jonnu Smith, David Njoku, Jatavian Sanders. And you can see the first onesie I took was Jonnu Smith at pick 108. And if anything, this team is a little thin at wide receiver because we only had 4 through 85 and our 5th wide receiver was at pick 157. But these builds, I've really been enjoying. You see, I still get some nice stacks here. CJ Stroud double stack with Nico and Jalen Knoll. Bryce Young, I get with Chuba, Tet, and Jatavian Sanders. And then Daniel Jones, I get with Josh Downs there. So I get my main stacks. I get 3 different stacks for the playoff gauntlet with Stroud, Young, and Jones. get the 3 tight ends there. I got Jonnu at a nice value. So these kind of builds, I think the only thing I would change on a team like this is the Jaylen Warren at 109. I'd probably like flip Jaylen Warren with Keenan Allen, like take a wide receiver at pick 109 and then flip that last running back selection to a pick at 181. You know, take a guy like DJ Giddens or something in that range. But yeah, you can build some really, really strong squads at obviously running back and wide receiver, and then hit that sweet spot at quarterback and tight end. So in these pugs, I was messing around with basically not taking any, you know, tight ends or quarterbacks early. Car Park said, Pete, one of my employees walked into my office just as you said, we'll do a little masturbation here. You know what, Car Park? I would be worried about your employment, your businesses, etc., if you weren't constantly fucking winning in the dailies. I swear every day I log on to x.com and it's just Car Park winning another slate. What was it last night? Was it WNBA Car Park? Look at this here. You just go to this guy's media thing here. Look at these screenshots. It's like this dude went first, second, and third, duped himself. That's a no-no. In WNBA. It's like the other day, he finishes the NBA season with a first place bank. What was this? About a month ago, here in the baseball streets. I mean, Car Park just on an unbelievable heater here. So yeah, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad about your employees hearing me talk about masturbation. You're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. Who are my top few in exposures right now? Let's go see. Do you want to see just BBM or do you want to see on the whole? On the whole here. Oh, this MarShawn Lloyd one. God, I want this to go away. When I saw that MarShawn Lloyd was practicing with the rehab group, that was the report the other day. I wanted to cry about this exposure. I am not selecting Lloyd anymore until this number comes way down. But Tootin here, 29.6%, Lloyd 25.4%, Jalen Knoll 22.5%, Tet at 22.5%, Downs 19.7%, Roschon 19.7%, Pat Bryant, Juwan Jennings, Xavier Worthy, Burden, Shipley, the other guys I'm 2x the field on. If we go to just BBM, I'm a little smoother there, obviously drafting with other people, mostly for BBM. So Jennings, Tet, Bowers, Jaydon Blue, Bryce Young, Drake London, Scatabo, Pollard, McCarthy, Purdy, Chase Brown, my top there for just BBM. We need Car Park on stream, seriously. And for people who don't know, Car Park has an awesome clothing / whiskey company. I hope I'm getting that right. He sent me some of his troll gear previously. Dude's just crushing it everywhere. I have 28% Michael Pittman, says Manly Moose. Cool. Use those winnings to buy some earbuds. Are you talking to Car Park? Oh, yeah. Oh, because he's playing it on the speakers. Yes. Earbuds would be helpful. Man, that was one thing. Do you guys do this move in the office? When I used to work in the office, I would always have my headphones near over my ears because it would prevent conversation. Sometimes I would listen to music or podcasts, but a lot of times, if I was working or I needed to concentrate, I would just have them on, because if you just wear headphones, people do not come and bother you. It's like the ultimate signal to other people. I am not available for small talk. If you need to use that hack, if you have too many people swinging by your desk or your cube, just put those headphones on and you'll be in good shape. Yes, exactly. And the other thing about this, Beefcake says, I have a headphone in case it makes people ask before they interrupt. I love making a big show out of it too. I remember doing this. I'll have nothing playing and you go, what's that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll see you later. You just make a big deal. Like you got to really pull the headphone out too. Uh-huh. What's that? And then they'll totally get the hint. They will totally get the hint. We all hate those guys that power through the beats when you're at the gym and force a conversation. They walk up to you and give you the wave. The other thing that happens with me and Lauren is like, you know, one of us will like, you know, get back from a run, or like one of us will have the headphones on in the house, you know, maybe one of us is cooking, maybe cleaning up or whatever. And then the other one is like frantically trying to press pause on the headphones as we're talking to each other. And then it's always like, repeat the whole, you know, last 3 sentences you said, because I had my earbuds in for that. All right, here. Is this breaking news? Barkley's on the Madden cover. I guess we should have seen that coming here. Let's see. What does this cover look like? All right, there it is. Saquon Bar. Okay, yeah, you knew it had to be the hurdle, right? Had to be the hurdle. That is pretty sick. That is a sick photo. I guess I never realized that his hand was pushing down, hovering right over his head. Incredible. Kyle Dvorchak, we are just analyzing the new Madden cover with Barkley. Have you and the LegUp team pushed him down 9 spots in the ranks due to the curse input?
Well, no, we already had him in the mid-second, maybe late third, because he's a running back, and we don't draft running backs, so we didn't really need to. We kind of already had this one squared away.
Yeah, that's good to know. NBC, Rotoworld, LegUps, Kyle Dvorchak subbing in for Patty Millions today. Did Pat give you kind of the rundown of things you need to do? Take Drake Maye 20 picks ahead ADP, kind of all the usual stuff?
Unfortunately, we do agree more often than not, because it's fun to be. I truly love being in the LegUp, like our back end like rankings chat, because we're just spending all day arguing, but like amongst friends. Like we're not like when you argue with someone online, like you can see your heart rate monitors, like you are going through the roof, buddy. Whereas like in the back end LegUp, it's much more like enjoyable, and also it serves as like a second space for content, because when I don't have a strong take on something, someone does. Like Sack comes in with like a bomb that we're like, oh my god, Sack, that's the craziest take ever, and we all argue about it. But you can just sit back and watch the flames burn. So like Drake Maye, I was like, oh, you gotta hand it to Pat. Does seem pretty good at football.
Honestly, I remember, I think it was Sigmund Bloom like a long time ago. And I think because we included it in a Fantasyland episode, but he had this quote where he's like, he always called, he had like a metaphor where it's like when people argue about players, it's like sharpening your knives, where it's like you feel better about a take or you move off of a take. And I actually think Pat's really good at that. I mean, how many times has Pat like been on a show, or I'm sure with you guys, he's like, oh, I'm moving this guy down here, or like you pin him on it. Like, would you really take him here? And it's like, I actually need to move that up. So it's like, thinking about ranks as this fluid thing, I think is good. Just knowing like you can't be so take locked on, you know, one specific version of your reality or whatever.
Yeah, some of our biggest, I mean, truly, like all of our biggest, maybe not all, a lot of our biggest arguments in the LegUp rankings chat are like, how much should we punish this guy, or how high should we be on this guy? Because we all agree in the LegUp chat that Jameson Williams is like overpriced. Like we just don't think he's a particularly good pick at his current price, because he goes so high. Everyone is pricing in such a big step up from where he was last year. And we're all fine being like, yeah, we should give him a little credit for being a young guy who had a weird start to his career. And we think he'll get better. He's gotten better every year, and we think he'll take the next step again. But the market is extremely confident he's taken that step. And they're extremely confident he's taking like 1.5 to 2 more steps. And so some of us will read the like the coach hype where they're like, man, it's great that this gambling addict is finally interested in football. And people are like, gotta move him up another round, 2-3 turn. And some of us in the chat will be like, let's pump the brakes on coach saying guy they took 12th overall they think is good at football. Like, I would hope they would say that. There aren't many alternatives to say other than like, yep, we kind of like him. We think he's good at football. So, you know, it's this give and take of typically we're like, how much do we adjust for this stuff? Are we overdoing it? Are we underdoing it? How high can we get on Drake Maye? We all want to be high on Drake Maye. Or like last year they pinned I was the Brandon Cooks guy where I was like, guys, maybe we should be 20 picks below ADP instead of 45. Like maybe you could take him with Dak once every 10 times you take Dak. And they pinned that on me as being the Brandon Cooks guy.
That is the thing. It's like, yeah, even like I just want to be slightly less contrarian or dogmatic than you, and now that's part of your personal brand or whatever.
Yeah.
I do think that has to be the hardest thing about rankings, and like the Jameson Williams example, right? Is like, because you have to rank these guys, like you literally have to order them if that's a thing you're providing, and yet the real question is is like, how much Jameson Williams do you want as a part of your portfolio?
Mhm.
Because if you always just draft off of ranks, then yeah, you might have 0%. But my guess is LegUp is not, advocating for subs to have 0% Jameson Williams. And so then where's that nuance? Okay, you're being underweight. Are you want to be 6%? Are we talking a 4% exposure blanket? Are we talking 2%? Because then how you actually apply that rank in practice is very different.
Yeah, and some of us, like Sack and I, are very much aligned on like, we could be a 1 or 2% on JMO guy. Like his price is hilarious relative to what he actually offered last year and has never offered before. And we still don't want 0, but we're like pretty fine just making a big fade. And there's also the other element of like, especially with JMO, like he's going up in price, man. I don't think we're getting the softest coach speak. Like he put on a few pounds of muscle. We think he's good at football. This guy who plays football for us, we like him. And that is already sending his price like every single day. He's just the highest price riser. And so even if we don't like him,
Real quick, Kyle, do you want Gibbs or Puka?
Let's do Puka. I don't have a strong take, but
okay,
Puka, I guess.
Sorry, but keep going on that. I just want to make sure we got our pick in there.
Yeah, even if we don't like a pick at their current price, if we are pretty confident they're going to rise, and I think there's a lot of players where we can be relatively confident that if nothing weird happens, right, the trajectory they're on is a rising trajectory. Do we want to just say we respect the market enough to say we will take closing line value? We don't think this is a good pick now, but we do think it's a strong bet on closing line value. And is that worth making a slightly weak pick now? Then in hindsight, in 2 months, when he is a more expensive player, we'll be at least happy that we got that closing line value. And that's another like push and pull of not only our takes and how much do we want of this player, but how much do we want of this player at every price we think he exists at over the course of this 3 or 4 month long drafting period.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. And then, like you said, it's you're putting this rankings out, and then within your subs, like some people might have different risk tolerances. Some people might be okay with a 0%. Some people might be like, I would like that exposure blanket. So that's where I think, we always fall back on the conversation of tiers or letting ATP values, present times that you would maybe click a guy you wouldn't, but having some kind of framework for knowing how you want to apply those ranks. And, for me, it's like, I get a lot of variety. Sometimes I'll draft off of LegUp ranks. Sometimes I'll draft off of ADP, and like, I'll naturally, find myself in different spots. So I kind of appreciate that, but it is something to be cognizant of if you are exclusively drafting off of the same ranking set over and over.
What do we got here? This is like the danger zone of the picks are about to start sucking.
Yes. Also, the draft board was lagging on me there for a second. We started with Puka, and we're about to pick at 2-6 here. We'll see what Dorito does. Drake London, Achan, Ladd, JT, Bucky, kind of the next by ADP here.
I was going to be London or Ladd for me, and we got both of them. I don't have a strong take. I guess I'll just go Ladd. Like, you look at guys who did what he did as a rookie, and they typically take off very quickly, if not instantly. And London is kind of that similar profile, like guys who did really well as a rookie, but we have more years of sample saying maybe he's not a superstar. Like, typically, if you have a superstar wide receiver, they're revealed to be that, especially for like first round guys who get lots of opportunities early in their career. Within the first like 1 to 4 years of their career, we typically know the late breakout superstar is extremely rare. Ironically, it's like Julio Jones. Weirdly, if you set a really high bar, he had his first 300-point season in his 5th year. He got like 299 or something 1 year before that, but he was banged up and played on some probably bad Falcons teams. But generally, it's like the first 3 years for first round picks, we know if you're a superstar. Maybe London's just really good. Ladd he really could be a superstar. I'm honestly surprised we don't treat him a little closer to how we treat like Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, I wonder, I think the selection of Trey Harris giving people just a teeny bit of pause. I think people still a little worried of, hey, the identity of this team. You sign Najee Harris, you draft Amari in Hampton, like we're going to run the damn ball. I can see why Brian Thomas is priced ahead. I do also just want to say, you proved to me with that selection of Ladd over London that you don't care about 2 things. 1, ADP value, Drake London sliding 2 picks, and you certainly do not care about week 17 in Puka Nakua and Drake London going back and forth there. So I just want to say you've made it very clear you're a player take guy. You don't care about ADP value. And you don't care about week 17.
The funny thing is we were just talking about like closing line value and how much like you do want to respect the market on that. But also I've been drafting mostly on DraftKings. So like even the ADP values I'm thinking about, I can't quite match up when I draft on Underdog. So I'm drafting way more on DK right now. So I can't even like match that up. The week, I will say the week 17 stuff, I went back and watched our my segment on the Truth Serum take last year. And it was like mine was week 17 was overrated. And it was specifically about like taking bad picks in the late rounds because they're week 17. And we nailed it. You were like, I got to stop drafting so much Tez Walker. And I was like, yeah, maybe we should have stopped drafting so much of guy who's really likely to get cut or practice squad or be game day inactive every week. And the other ones were like Demarcus Robinson, who I think, did he like 000?
He did. Terry, JSN, Devontae, Tet, Mike Evans, the strong wall of wide receivers here.
Okay. Yeah, I honestly don't. ADP value Terry. I don't even draft him that much, and it's only like 3 picks of value. But
yeah, we can do Terry. Jaydon is almost always there. If Terry falls this far, Jaydon at 42. So we can entertain that if we want. But yeah, a little ADP fall there. Yeah, man, I forgot about Devontae Walker. It's funny. I mean, I just fucking took Ty Felton in the draft right before this. I'm sure I just took this year's Devontae Walker. So, I'm back on my bullshit.
Was it for a week 17 thing though, where you're like, the real pitch on this guy is that I don't like him, but
I had JJ McCarthy, and I needed a wide receiver, so I was like,
that feels much more reasonable than like, I know Demarcus Robinson isn't good at football, and I know he's not going to be a top 3 target. There's no chance of a breakout. He's not good. He doesn't play on a team that I have the quarterback of, but the opposing quarterback, he's going to be in that game. Like I think it's a way we sell ourselves on bad picks. I think it actually makes a lot of sense in the early rounds where the correlation between a team's wide receiver 2 as of May, or I guess June 2nd, right? And an opposing team's wide receiver 3 from 6 months out, that game's being played in January. The correlation between those 2 players is like functionally zero. The impact that we can say that one player's production has now on the other is like nothing. But the impact on like Ladd McConkey or Puka Nakua and Drake London, they're going to be really stable. We can comfortably project some amount of fantasy points for them in week 17, and we can project both of them for a certain amount of fantasy points. We know they play in the same game. There is a meaningful interaction between those 2 players' scores. It's like it's the famous Ertz Algier one. Those guys had no correlation between their scores in week 17 because we were so far out and they were such meaningless players.
Yeah. Let's make this big. I want to present just a little bit of pushback. I think some stuff you said I completely agree with, of like justifying bad picks just for correlation. Let's real quick. Do you want to grab the Jaydon stack, or is there something else you'd like to do here?
No, Jaydon stack is good.
Yeah, I'm happy to grab that there. See, the only thing that I think about is with the early round versus late round correlation, and specifically, I'm generally talking about like the premium stacks where you're spending 3 to 4. Like, so last year it would have been like the Eagles offense. This year, I think the Bengals offense qualifies, where I think of my like first and second round picks. Like, these guys are studs. They can get there in any offensive environment. CeeDee Lamb can drop 30 and Dak can have like 20, where it's like, I know you can do your job. So I tend to think about correlation more as the draft progresses, where I'm like, it's actually the fringe guys. Like, I took Michael Wilson with Kyler. Like, I'm not just ripping a ton of one-off Michael Wilson. I'm like, if Kyler's going nuts in week 17, or like, what is the game environment that Michael Wilson needs to drop a 25 ball? It's probably a pretty crazy game environment. So like, I tend to want the correlation more for the late round picks and just trust that like my early round guys can get it done any which way.
Oh, if it's quarterback to pass catcher, absolutely. And also, you could literally say he's like inactive week 17, and the correlation exists in 16, 15, and then the entire first quarter of the tournament. Yeah, I will absolutely not break ties. I will break like, I like this player more, but I don't think I should like him enough to not take a stacked player. Michael Wilson's I take a ton of Michael Wilson because Kyler, if Kyler cared about football, he'd be so good at football. Instead, he's just decent at football, but he seems pretty cheap for a guy with a high weekly ceiling, so I get a decent amount of him. And in the end, I'm like, what do we do here? Are we up?
Right. So we're on the clock here. RJ Harvey, Chuba, Calvin Ridley are kind of in here. Hurts falling, but we probably don't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's Harvey or Chuba.
Yeah, I've been not getting a ton of Harvey, so I'm down to pull the trigger on him here if you're on board with that.
Yeah, do it. Go for it.
Let's yeah, for some reason I feel like Chuba will slide a little bit more to like the late 5th, so I'm able to like gobble him up past ADP, where it seems like anecdotally for me, maybe I just haven't had a ton of middle slots either. I just like never seem to be able to get Harvey on my teams.
Yeah, back to the week 17 thing. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, like if you were to just map out, like, I mean, like the Devontae Walker's per example, but if you were to either do the math or just look at what we were doing last year, is like the correlation between like a low value, 2 low value players, say, in a game that doesn't take place for another 6 months. We just have no ability to predict those two things. But we do have an ability to predict which teams will be good in terms of over the course of a season. And that's much more why I care about any sort of late round correlation. Is like, yeah, if you just bet on like the Broncos last year and you were like, oh, I'll take some Marvin Mims late. I don't think he's that good, but I already took Bo Nix. He was my QB3. And you got that win. You got a big win that didn't just compound during week 17 because they played a fun game. I don't remember what game it was. It was like Chargers, maybe? I don't know.
I think that's right. Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I've slowly replaced every single week 17 game from yesteryear with something from this year for the most part, which feels like it happened too early, if I'm being honest.
All right, we're about to pick at 6-6. We got Jaden Daniels stacked up with Terry. We got RJ Harvey as our lone running back, and then Puka and Ladd as our wide receivers up top here. I do have the sidekick up here suggesting a little Debo double stack here.
Oh, thank God. I really didn't want to take Debo.
Oh, there you go. I actually don't mind Debo, but Olave, Montgomery, Judkins, Rome, Laporta, Reed, Judy, anything stand out to you here?
At top of ADP, I would just go Olave. It's the sidekick. Yeah. One of the sidekick recs too.
Yep. Yeah. It's, Rome slightly higher ADP, Olave here. Yeah, let's grab Olave. How are you thinking about the Bears offense right now? Obviously DJ Moore's ADP is dipping a little bit. And it was funny because you would have thought like the DJ Moore Rome slides in conjunction to Loveland and Luther Burden. And now we have Luther Burden sliding because he has a soft tissue injury. So it's like, are we just going to get cheap everything on the Bears? Like, how are you playing that right now?
I hope so, because I don't, there's so much talk about how like, oh man, this team just did such a disservice to Caleb with the offensive line and the bad offensive coordinator. And like, I agree. The metrics are not entirely clear that the offensive line was bad. I know Brandon Thorne thought they were really bad, but like ESPN stuff said they actually had like a dead average pass block win rate. PFF stuff, so they were just like an average to a little below average offensive line. Totally concede like Shane Waldron is just a complete moron. Would never want him coaching my number 1 overall pick. But man, this guy loves to take sacks and really wasn't accurate as a rookie. So I am very glad we are getting any amount of discount, because I think the floor is that he's like really bad. The floor for most players is that they're really bad if we do not have like, years like CeeDee Lamb. We know he's not bad anymore. But any player coming to the NFL can be really bad. And Caleb was really bad last year. He's probably not that good, but the ceiling case is so strong. And I'm so on board with the idea that this has an asymmetric upside to it that I'm willing to pay what feels like dumb prices. And I'm glad the prices are becoming a little less dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, I feel like now's one of the trickiest times for kind of handling some of the injury stuff. Like Ricky Pearsall comes off the board. He's dealing with something a little bit different, I guess, for a year 2 player than a rookie, where we know that those slow training camps can be, you don't want to say a death knell, but it can certainly impede them. Let's actually make this pick here. Judkins, DeAndre Swift, Pollard, Aaron Jones. It looks like it likes us taking a running back here. I don't see anything at quarterback or tight end. Who do you like here?
Yeah, Judkins. If we had like a second chaperone type running back a little closer in ADP to Judkins, I would say like bank the points, but Judkins is like very clearly top of board ADP wise and rankings wise. So probably Judkins.
Yeah. Judkins ADP is 73.7, falls to 79. I feel like I've been getting him a little bit more lately. He was one of the like classic kind of rookie hype and then fatigue guys where he like steams up like 2nd round draft capital. And then everyone's like, I don't know about this Browns offense. And we seem to like Dylan Sampson, and Jerome Ford's probably not going away. And now he, slides past ADP a good amount.
Everyone saw the ESPN graphic that was all of the OTA pass attempts and like touchdown to interception ratios for all of their quarterbacks. You're like, ooh, a passing graphic with 4 quarterbacks on it, all of which could start. Oh, let's check that Judkins exposure. Let's check that Jerry Jeudy exposure. And yeah, especially we already know that generally like the rookies hit their peak when all the slappies are out. And then as the summer comes, they kind of cool off a little bit as you get more normal, well-adjusted people drafting. So I've been trying to make like some very obvious mental notes. I mean, you guys on ADP chasing or ship chasing or whatever talked about 12 risers. I've been trying to think about like, who do I think the values will be changing on them? We're like agnostic of my opinion of them. Like we know in general, we've seen like for years that we hit this like rookie fever and then it just cools off a little bit. And we see like in their place, a lot of the veteran projected touches kind of guys. Like last year was like Isaiah Pacheco and Javonte Williams hit their peak where we're like, man, these guys are getting a lot of touches. Neither of those worked, but they're not all bad picks. So I've been trying to both, you know, obviously I have my own takes and how I think you should properly build rosters, but I also have been trying to think a lot about like, where are the movers going to be and how can I get ahead of those?
And this is one of those very, I don't know what the word is, I guess fragile ranges of the draft in that I can see ADP shuffling a lot here, you know, in round 6, 7, because it's like we're going to have the projectable volume guys, like a few of these guys from, you know, rounds 8, 9 will push up into this range. You're going to have like a push pull for who loves rookies the most or who doesn't want them. We are back on the clock here. Brian Robinson, potentially, if we want to like go mega commanders. We also have the wide receivers, Burton, Ibuka, Pittman. What do you think?
Brian, I like the call with Brian Robinson. We're also both of the top running backs in ADP, I think, and sidekick are like these really ugly, boring backs. But like if Judkins and Harvey are committed early in the year and end up breaking out later, like we're going to need some guy who's not a fun click who gets 16 touches in week 1.
Yes. I think that I love when I have like a second excuse, you know, when you have the gross pick at the board and you don't, everyone knows that feeling, but when you have the second permission for it, like say we had the KC stack going, or we had something like that. And it's like, okay, all right, this is the Pacheco team. We need a running back, you know, we need, and then, oh, I also get the correlation. It's like, that's all I need. I need a little,
I really need to be pushed to making the right decision. Like I need this guiding hand to be like, this is clearly the right pick. Like, you know, he was top of, or maybe second top, a sidekick. He was correlated. I really don't like taking Brian Robinson, but it was very clear he was the right thing to do. And finding all the reasons to make the right choice can sometimes be a struggle. And I'm glad we had multiple there.
Yep. So we now got this big Washington stack going. Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, McLaurin. We also have the 2 rookie running backs, RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins. Our other wide receivers, Puka, Ladd, and Olave. No tight end yet, but a 1-3-4-0 as we head into round 9 here. Have there been, I know you guys are always on top of the news over at Rotoworld. Have there been any interesting rookie blurbs that have made you like think twice about a player, whether it's getting more bullish or bearish, or have we not had any meaningful, you know, camp reports yet?
I mean, there's been some stuff. I mean, it's all like, it's really hard to separate some of these like very fluff things. Like one of them was like Kyle Williams is standing out at Patriots camp. And I was like, oh, every player on that team is terrible. I would expect you to stand out. But also, like, not every rookie stands out. I do think there is. We can make our pick here.
Yeah, we're back on the clock here. I don't see anything at quarterback. We do. ADP, you're looking at Jonnu, Jalen Warren, Tyron Tracy. Ranks is Jonnu and Jalen Warren.
I think I'm Warren here. Another pair early production, probably. Like if Caleb Johnson's breaking out, it's probably not in week 1. Pair him with our Harvey and Judkins, who, you know, I'm projecting for more points in week 17 than I am week 1. Even if there are more, they're less of the stereotypical, like they're going to be committed early and need some time to break out. But like, I still think it's even true of those guys. So I'm like, I can see the touches for the rookie, probably still more likely to get the touches in week 17 than you are in week 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to say, and then I want to get more of your thoughts on the rookies is one, you know, one thing that's really helpful. So, you know how it goes with like a blurb, like goes viral or like coach speak. And there's like this, I don't know what the right psychological term is, if it's like primacy bias or whatever, it's the thing that we've seen in front of us and we want to assign more weight to it. One thing that's been very valuable, like whether it's on Rotoworld or like I've been doing it in the coach speak index where he lists all of the quotes from the conference and you see it next to, you know, effusive praise for 4 other players. Yes. And it helps kind of frame it. It wasn't like a lot of times these blurbs get passed around. It's like, he just went on a 20-minute rant about how much he loves like Tajay Spears or something. It's like, well, he also talked about Chigakwankwo and Alec Iomanor. And sometimes just seeing the framing of a coach like gassing up multiple players can help you have a more healthy perspective on like what that coach speak means.
Yeah, not only seeing the framing of everything else they talked about, but seeing like we get these snippets from these coach quotes, and those are typically the ones that make the round. It's not the whole paragraph, whatever. One of them was like Rashard Smith. There's a quote about like we really see him as like a dynamic runner or whatever. And what didn't get included, it was from Andy Reid who was saying that. What didn't get included in the quote that made the rounds was Andy Reid saying, but we haven't put pads on yet, so I can't really say anything. Like, he was like, yeah, of course I liked him. We drafted him. And then he immediately goes, he hasn't put on pads yet. We'll find out in a month if I actually think he's good. But it was mostly the, I think he could be good that made the rounds type of thing. Or seeing the question, too, is I think one that actually does make a big difference. Like, what do you think of Jalen Wright? I think the question's about Jalen Wright or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think of Jalen Wright? And they're like, we like Jalen Wright a lot. Like, of course, we like Jalen Wright a lot. You got asked about Jalen Wright. It feels much more impactful when a player comes up unprompted.
For sure. Holy wall of quarterbacks here.
Yeah, this happens on DK and Underdog, where the LegUp ranks hit the wall of quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, you could just pay homage to Pat here and argue for Kyle Williams or Christian Kirk, and then see what kind of like quarterback stuff comes back. Marvin Mims also in the mix here. What do you think?
I'd be fine with Kyle Williams. We don't have anything I'm dying to set up at quarterback right now since we have Jaydon. So Kyle's fine with me. And I'm not worried about our early season production. It's not a team where I'm like, we need to bank some Christian Kirk points.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, Jaydon gives us such a wide moat for needing that QB2. You have Stafford in your back pocket. You have Herbert. You have, dare I say, Tyler Shuck in your back pocket. Not a man you want to have in your back pocket, but he's theoretically there. And then Kyle Williams.
It's like having lint in your back pocket. You're like, there's something in there. I can feel it. It's like reshaping the pocket in a way that's not comfortable to sit on. Do I want it there? It's unclear.
Yeah, and this room ended up being even more, a little bit more avalanche-y than my previous draft here. So, Kyle Williams, I guess in the draft earlier, he went at 104. So I was kind of fudding him just in relation to some of the other third round wide receiver price tags and kind of going through like, we priced him up, but I certainly see the vision. And the vision is your lead wide receiver is doing pink cocaine on a boat. And if you want to buy someone helping Drake Maye ascend, it's probably Kyle Williams at this point.
Yeah, after we got the Kyle Williams, which is just like he's standing out as in like he's made a few plays. Like some of them he was catching from Josh Dobbs or whatever. He caught one long one from Drake Maye. Like a few days after that in OTAs, there was one that was like the second-year players are getting the routes. Javon Baker, drop. Jalen Polk, drop. And I was like, these guys are so dead. Like there is such a clear path for Kyle Williams. Not to say he'll take it. Like we made this argument last year, and we were right that there was a clear path for Jalen Polk. He drove right off the cliff, man. He was not good.
Yes. Yeah, and this is like the dynamic, that happens in these drafts, and why sometimes the Jaydon click, feels rough is because you get into these spots at wide receiver. So we could do the Drake Maye thing. Of course, we could grab our first tight end. Like if you like a Goddard or Ferguson here, I don't think there's anything at wide receiver or running back here.
I suppose we should just go quarterback and probably go Drake Maye. Herbert would have been, Herbert's by overlap. Good job, sidekick. So Drake Maye probably.
All right. So we do Drake Maye. I do think it's like at some point you just don't want to fight the value pockets of the draft room here, even if you're like, man, I would like to get a slightly better price on my QB2. But you did fulfill your promise to Pat Kerrane that you would go on Best Ball Breakfast and you would draft a Drake Maye stack. How funny would it be? And Pat's like the only one we could say this would be hilarious because he's already won Best Ball Mania. If this was the team that won Best Ball Mania when Pat was out, and it was a Drake Maye stack, I think we would all just laugh.
I feel like he would have a lawsuit coming. He'd be like, I have some equity in this. I don't know what percentage it is, but like, there's clearly more than zero of my DNA in this team. And I'd be like, he makes a good point. I'm not giving him the money, but like, he does make a good point.
This is where you're different though, because Pat normally makes me take Drake Maye around pick 110, and we took him at 127, which Pat has never shown that level of restraint.
This is like seriously the biggest sticking point in like every LegUp conversation is like, Pat, I agree. I like Drake Maye a lot too. Do we need to rank him at 64? And he's like, we do need to rank him. Is not asking to go that high. But I think I'm recently added Michael Dubner are typically the like, we should regress a little bit to market guys. And Pat's like, screw the market.
Screw that. I do think that would be a fun like content / exercise for you guys if you all who are on the rankings team, put out your own individual ranks and then saw like between you two or between you guys who differed the most, like who were the most polarizing players even amid your ranking crew, would be kind of cool to see.
I mean, I could just guess it. It's easily Pat, but it's also Sack. Sack typically takes the same approach, but then he will just like, he'll be like, yeah, he's kind of like Sean Siegel in that way, where like, I agree with a lot of Sean Siegel's takes. And then he'll randomly like Travion Henderson, even in best ball, should be taken pick 25 or whatever. Like there are these extreme outliers. Except Sack's all negative. He just doesn't like players. He doesn't actually like anyone. That's the big difference.
So this is the nice spot about waiting at tight end. Goddard comes off the board. Jake Ferguson, week 17 correlation screaming at us here. Yeah, Kincaid, do you like anyone here?
Yeah, do Ferguson.
Ferg. All right, let's grab Ferguson here. Pretty nice on, we have the big Washington bet, and now we fill a position in need with the bring back at ADP there. So Ferguson seems like a pretty logical click there.
Yeah, and this does seem like the start of like the pocket of tight ends where like the difference between the tight end, like yearly, we see this every single year. Like the difference between the tight end 5 or 6 or whatever and the tight end 14 is like meaningless because all these guys are not very good. So just like keep piling up these loser route runners because it turns out they're all like that. We're like, oh, well, Kincaid is like, he's going to be the next big thing. And like, nope, just another loser route runner. So can just take like the guys who are probably similarly talented and just way cheaper.
Yeah. And I will say, seeing these quarterback slides and kind of what JGFC was able to do, where when you are pushing, you sometimes get these incredible fallers that line up correlated too. So he had George Pickens, the CD drafter, passed on Dak because he had a Caleb Williams fall. So now all of a sudden you're getting Dak at pick 140 stacked up, and you still emerge from the first 9 rounds with all running backs, wide receivers. You get Loveland, Njoku. Like you see how easily those rooms can come together when you sit at quarterback. It's kind of that tricky dynamic with the elite onesies right now.
Yeah, it's such a good time of year to be drafting these like just 3 bad quarterbacks because we have so little information to work on that the late rounds right now are going to look so much different than the late rounds will August 31st. We just don't have a ton of information, right? These guys haven't put on pads yet. But like I know for sure the starting quarterbacks for almost every team. The ones I don't, I'm not drafting much of. But there's just a good chance you get not a huge hit at quarterback here, but you avoid so many landmines.
Yep. I reject this question so much. No, I actually reject your answer. Who is the most legitimate pick you each haven't selected yet? For me, Joe Milton. How are you putting Joe Milton in legitimate pick in the same sentence right now? Okay, we're back on the clock here. Palmer and Noel as wide receiver selections seem to make some sense for us. Ertz for the early reach stack. What do you think?
I'd be Noel over Palmer. I just don't want to draft Josh Palmer. He's a perfectly fine pick that I won't be making. So,
Noel's my most drafted wide receiver right now, so I'm never going to say no to that. I do sometimes take Palmer on teams like this where, a little thinner at wide receiver. I would say, at least by my general standards, but I have no problem getting Noel there. I think it's a pretty strong click. And again, going back to those 3rd round wide receivers, and it's funny because we have Kyle Williams on this team, but just I think a pretty strong prospect, really nice situation. You're getting the discount because he might not be on the field in 3 wide receiver sets to start, but hasn't he been getting some pretty good early training camp buzz too, of playing well? Have you seen some Noel buzz?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to say what's all fluff right now, and I'd rather just see it's a lot of guys. I'm like, I don't know if they'll be making the field or do their coaches know they exist much? And when they do, or when the beat reporter's like, oh yeah, that guy exists, like that feels good. I think there's not a ton of value to be gained from individual, like this player is playing well, but the fact that he is on the radar of particularly the coaches is obviously the best, but even of the beat reporters, like you ask beat reporters where Kamani Vidal was last year, and they're like, we don't know what country, but we think United States. We are very unclear on that. Mexico's close enough. He could be there. Haven't seen him in a while. You just heard nothing about him. And ultimately, that turned out to be a very bad signal. So I never want to get too over my skis on player played well on these like air reps, these 7-on-7 reps without pads. But I also want to note when players seem to not be existing very much.
Yeah. And it is like we've already, we know there's a little bit of I don't know, volatility to top prospects when they shared the field with another top player. This is like such a unique situation to have both of them drafted to the same team. I was just thinking, do we have any other examples of 2 top wide receivers being drafted to the same team?
You know, I certainly can't think of one. We have a ton of examples of just the 2 top wide receiver dynamic happening.
Yeah.
I couldn't come up with one, especially in the same draft class. Like, probably have it come and go where like team likes this team's offense, this team's coaches. Like, I think like the Steelers like are really familiar and like the Ohio State players. Like, maybe they end up drafting like 2 of them in a 3-year span or whatever, and they end up playing together again. But like in the same year, I certainly can't come up with one. Maybe it's happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think there is just that element there too, of like just the unknown of like how that in the draft capital, yes, Higgins early second, Noel third, there's a difference there, but I think a pretty interesting dynamic. All right. Sidekicks pushing tight end to us. I don't think there's a quarterback thing we do here. There are some wide receiver options. Roshan is in the mix. What do you think is the play here?
Are we at least at ADP with Zach Ertz? Another player I don't want to do, and I think it's probably just the
five picks ahead.
I guess it's probably still the correct thing to do, but this sucks. I'd go Pat Bryant if I could, but
well, of course we can.
I don't think we'll make it in time. I don't know if it's even the right choice.
I almost did it. Yeah, I'm with you. I still think as part of a 3 tight end room on a Jaden Daniels team, we got Jake Ferguson. We can take another upside swing. I guess the thing that feels gross is there were some nice ADP values there. Say what you will about Kyle Pitts, but he was an ADP value. Brenton Strange, I think, is pretty intriguing as well, but probably wise to just build out the Commanders Omega stack.
Yeah, probably should. Kyle Pitts maybe, given how far behind ADP was he? Because I feel like there's like that is the easiest way to just draft players you don't like, is you will find players you don't like as ADP values all the time. Like, say leave every draft with like 3 or 2 picks you don't like at ADP values. It's probably really good for your like portfolio if you're drafting a lot of teams. It's like, I only get players I don't like at really good values is a really good reason to always have some players you don't like, to always get to 3 or 4% of players, because we're going to be wrong, and it's okay to lean on your takes, but to 0% players is a mistake I've certainly.
Yes, for sure. So here's our team. Let me recap here since we are entering into round 15, 2-4-6-2. So we got Daniels, we got Drake Maye, we got our rookie running backs, RJ Harvey, Judkins, Brian Robinson, Jalen Warren. We're back on the clock here. Pat Bryant does not make it back to us. We could get a third tight end here, Hunter Henry, if we want to get the double quarterback tight end stack, some wide receivers in the mix here as well.
Yeah, none of the receivers are popping to me. I think just we're definitely taking a third tight end, and one of them is stacked with us, and one of them has a high target share with our stack. Obviously, like he's kind of a loser, but at least he earns targets. It's got to be Hunter Henry.
Let the record show I've now drafted back-to-back teams with Zach Ertz and Hunter Henry, one with Trey McBride earlier, one with Jake Ferguson. So playing the hits here today. Thank you to Car Park shouting out. Almost 600 people watching live, but only 91 likes. What an awful ratio, people. Hit the like button, subscribe. We're here every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern. If you don't like watching Kyle draft Drake Maye, you can regularly watch Pat draft Drake Maye during the same time slot. No, we very much appreciate Kyle filling in today from the LegUp crew for Pat. And also a mention, the new show on Wednesdays is it's called Best Ball Bash. We spin a wheel for YouTube members at the top of the show, and whoever name comes up gets to hop on immediately, draft a BBM team on me, split the winnings. It's been a very fun time. And then randomizer draft immediately following. And this week, Kyle, it's my old friend, your colleague, Denny Carter, is making the return to the randomizer. I feel like I don't see Denny anymore because he's on Blue Sky, and I don't hang out there a ton. And so it literally feels like this old friend, and I'm meeting up with him at summer camp. So, but you get to hang out with him in Slack or whatever, I'm sure.
No, he's never checked Slack once. Never ever sent him Slack. He'll never check it. You have to text him.
You have to text him. I'm like literally thinking, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to put the promo up for randomizer. I was like, I'm going to have to dust off my Blue Sky account to go over there to get prompts for Denny. I don't think he's not retweeting something on X. That's for sure.
No, he's legitimately, I don't think, maybe he's actually probably has logged on for like news purposes, but I know for a fact he has not tweeted or retweeted, probably even liked anything from his account in maybe like a full year.
Yeah, no, he did. And these days it's kind of, I was having the thought the other day, and I just like, I still use it for information and real-time news and in searching. I still very much appreciate it. But as like an actual social network, it like couldn't be any worse right now. But I still like get all my news from there, and I appreciate it for that. But I don't blame him. I do not blame him.
And the funny thing is, I would love to still use it to promote my content, and it's dead for that. Like, it's just so hard to do that. So like the one thing that it would theoretically could have still utility for me, if I was like, I don't want to use social media in the way that like it's destroying my Zoomer brain, it doesn't even work for the one thing left I could actually do with it.
So here's an interesting thing. Do you grab Matthew Stafford as a third QB here with Puka, or is that completely unnecessary with Daniels and May? And would you rather gravitate to a stacked Demario Douglas? You mentioned liking Michael Wilson. What do you think is the play here?
I think so. I'll go Stafford. I'll put in my answer first.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that behind the scenes, the LegUp crew has been working on in terms of like the actual data science of it, is that like, man, the 3 quarterback builds are just way stronger than we realized. And even particularly when you spend a lot, this is the one thing that really surprised me, and they're still working on it, so I don't want to say anything concretely, but like, yeah, from some of the early data stuff we're showing is like, even when you spend a decent amount, like way more than I would have guessed, on your first quarterback or your first 2 quarterback combined, the third quarterback often still makes a decent amount of sense for almost any team. So I was surprised by that. To me, it was much more like, I really love drafting 3 bad quarterbacks. It's like even better on DK, where these picks at the 20th round are complete garbage. It's like, I really like filling up my roster with players who I know will be on the field scoring. But I was surprised and still like skeptical, but I at least believe them to some degree that just the 3 quarterback build in general is a bit stronger.
Yeah, and the other dynamic about it too is, and Pat's talked about it a little bit as well, of like, you're just getting these massive ADP values on players that should probably be going 20 to 30 picks ahead. You also, the way the draft board's shaking out, at least right now, I do feel like you're finding yourself with kind of a luxury pick or 2 at the end of drafts where you're really balanced positionally, you're looking across your room, and it's like, do I want to take Matthew Stafford, who I know exactly who he is? He's going to give me an extra stacking out during the playoff gauntlet, give me a way to get a unique piece through a unique stack. Or do I want to take a player who has pretty high zero risk, at this point? And it's like, yeah, if I'm not behind positionally, why not? Demario Douglas continues to stare us in the face. He plummets on 19 picks. Should we just pull the trigger here?
Yep, got it.
He's these kind of we now have some really big stacks, which is fun. We got Daniels, Brian Robinson, Terry, and Ertz. We have Drake Maye with Kyle Williams, Demario Douglas, and Hunter Henry. We got the bring back with Jake Ferguson opposite Jane Daniels. We don't have any Jets opposite Drake Maye. Drake's on a plane, never forget. Matthew Stafford, we don't have anything with Atlanta, but this team 3-4-7-3, one more pick left. Probably a running back, I would say.
I think so too. Yeah. I think one thing that you were talking about is that, like, I think we last year was a good heat check on the, you can just draft whatever running back you want in the 11th round. They'll score as much as the 3rd round guys. Like, there is a lot of risk in these early round running backs, but going so far to the point where you just can't score points at running back, especially like on DraftKings when I have the 20th round, I'm like, man, I'll just bank a bunch of Jarquez Hunter points. He'll just score a bunch of points, and I won't need to worry about running back. And those bets are so thin. We talk about how they have so much zero risk. Also, like, the upside isn't elite on some of these guys. We're like, they're probably just like the best case scenario for Jarquez Hunter is that he forces a little bit of a committee with Kyron, and then Kyron goes down, and it's probably still just a committee. So like, these bets aren't elite bets, but because zero RB was on such a heater that we're like, I don't know, man, we'll just pick 6 loser running backs and it'll all work out in the end. We got a little bit of heat check on that. Last year was a massive heat check in terms of just the overall injury rates by position, but it was a good reminder that like these teams can use some projected points at running back. You want to get them cheaply, and you don't want to do them where the risk of them falling off, it's typically older guys, right? Where it really hurts you. But they're not completely useless. I did go overboard last year on that. Despite having a good year, I was way too aggressive on saying like, you just don't need any points at running back. And so now that I'm a little more comfortable mixing in 1 or 2 early round running backs, like you said, it does give you a lot more flexibility late too.
Yep. So let's see here. Speaking of dog shit running back selections, Blake Corum obviously has the correlated angle. If you buy that he's the running back 2 and not the running back 3. Jordan James, Miles Sanders is also kind of intriguing, I think, these days, and part of a bring back. Seen people taking Taj Brooks. I'm out of the MarShawn Lloyd business. I've already drafted too much. I'm just out of that business. What stands out to you here?
I mean, Kareem Hunt stands out because I haven't seen this guy's name all summer. I was like, oh man, he still plays, doesn't he? It's probably Blake Corum. I am very skeptical that Corum's actually the RB2, but I also guess, like I just said, I think it's at this point it's a committee if anything happens to Kyren, and that's fine. Like we're betting on the team already, so it's probably Blake Corum. Yeah, and
I completely agree with that take. If Kyren goes down, we're probably seeing, we had some of those gross committees that we saw with Los Angeles when was it Gurley went down, where you'd get was it Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson?
I was gonna say Darrell Henderson was the year everyone thought he was great, and he got committed because he wasn't actually good.
Yeah.
Who was the real thick back that played for Denver? They had CJ Anderson for a playoff run, didn't they?
Okay, that sounds about right. Yeah,
I think it was CJ Anderson.
Yeah, because you'd get Corum taking probably the early down work, and then Jarquez Hunter would be probably more like the change of pace. Who knows exactly how they divvy it up, but it would probably be divvied up. I think from a contingent upside standpoint, Blake Corum, if there was an injury to Kyren, I think he'd still pay off an 18th round price.
I agree. He'd pay off this price. Yes.
Yeah,
man.
It might not be
Anderson.
Flashy. It might not be like Chuba Hubbard from last year, but I think it would get the job done.
I agree. But we would have said that about Chuba too. We'd be like, it's not going to be flashy with Chuba, but it'll get the job done. And it was flashy. He was just legit good at football. Oh man, 2018 on his second team in that year, CJ Anderson played 2 games for the Rams and rushed for 300 yards.
Unreal. Yeah, the kind of the roller coaster for the Rams running backs over the years. There was the Todd Gurley era, the Cam Akers era, now the Kyren Williams era, and it's the team always wanted to have that bell cow back, and then they've had these dark periods in between where they're trying to find it, and they're all right, we can't force it. But in his heart of hearts, Sean McVay wants that bell cow back.
Yeah, and in the depths of the worst committees, we start talking maybe McVay's done with the bell cow back. And he's like, no, these guys suck the moment he gets a competent player. Kyron's not even that great. He's good at handling touches, but he's the least explosive back in the NFL. As long as McVay has had a competent back, oftentimes he's had more than that, he has been giving him all of the work. And it's just when he has truly the most decrepit, disgusting committees or, backfields is when he finally committees them. But he does not want to do that.
No. Let's read off this final team here. Get your thoughts. 3-5-7-3. Jaden Daniels, Drake Maye, Matthew Stafford. Let the record show Matthew Stafford, 2 full rounds past ADP. RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins, Brian Robinson, Jalen Warren, Blake Corum, our 5 running back room. Our wide receivers, Puka, Ladd, Terry, Olave, Kyle Williams, Jalen Knoll, and Demario Douglas. 3 tight ends, Ferguson, Ertz, Henry. Obviously, big team bets on Washington, New England, and the Rams. Thoughts, comments, concerns about this team?
No, this seems good. I mean, I was going to say maybe we should have not gone with Stafford and gone for another running back, but the Stafford pick was at a spot where the running backs are just so bad, so high zero risks too, that the projected points added for taking a guy like Stafford is just so much higher. And we already had good upside bets, and RJ Harvey's ceiling is elite. He's a little scary. He could just not be good at football, and it turns out to be a bad pick. We already had really good ceiling bets for our running backs. So I love the big team plays. You look at the best picks every year, and it's a cohort of guys grouped together. I mean, it's the Stroud year. It was Tank Dell and Nico Collins and CJ Stroud, and maybe, I don't know if that was Dameon Pierce here or not, but I was probably, I think it was Devin Singletary year because he took over the backfield from Dameon Pierce. But when one underrated offense explodes, it's not just the quarterback or the wide receiver one. It's so many good late round picks that get brought up by it that I really think, especially in the Drake Maye territory, where he's not completely free, but he goes into massive QB2 type players. Those are the type of team bets you really want to make.
Let me ask you, because this is kind of the dynamic that I've been feeling out, where obviously the late, and we were kind of talking about too, those late 3 quarterback builds feel better. And kind of the decision you ultimately end up having where we took, because I agree, I think where we were at in the draft, you got to click the Drake Maye there, where the Stafford value. But to me, I start to go back and I look at like this 2v2 of like
Yep.
Travis Hunter and let's say Justin Herbert. Obviously we got to bend stuff a little bit, but let's say round 12, Justin Herbert stacked up with Lad, or let's even say round 11, whatever. Or the Jaden Daniels and our, let's say Kyle Williams, because he was in that range. I realize it messes up the stack dynamics, but those are kind of the 2v2s that you're looking at of why it often feels gross to be on the elite QB side.
I agree. I think I would just take the other 2v2 that we didn't end up taking. Obviously, like, it's easy to know in hindsight what we could or could not have gotten. We also get in a spot where like there's a run of quarterbacks and Justin Herbert goes and like Drake Maye goes. And we're like, now we have unstacked Tyler Shuck at the end of a draft. But in general, I have been willing to push quarterback. And I think even on this team, and I think it's a really good team, like it's well structured, has a lot of correlation, has a lot of players I like. I still think even then, it's close. I don't think it's a huge difference, but I actually just would take the non-elite quarterback 2v2. It's close, but like looking back on it, I think I agree with the sort of sentiment you were putting out there.
And I think it's funny because I've done it like in the, they've had some of the side contests, the pug and the hound dog, and just to kind of like stress test it and see how I really felt. I like legit forced myself not to take a quarterback in the double digits. Like it was after 100 and like I would literally click off quarterback and tight end and then just build my teams. And then and I was like loving the teams. And the reason I think it was instructive is because there will almost be a juncture in the draft where there's a really nice elite quarterback stacked up option or an elite tight end, either at or past ADP that you really like. And I'm not saying that those are like trap picks or bad picks or anything, but it is one of those things where like every single time I like zoom out on a squad, I'm like, I love Trey McBride, but I like my team better when I took a wide receiver here. I love Jaden Daniels. I wish I would have taken a running back or whatever here. And that's just like this weird thing right now where it's like, I don't want to have 0% Jaden Daniels. I think he's awesome. I think he should be stacked up with Terry. I love how they correlate. And yet the overall team doesn't feel as great.
I feel a little better about the elite tight ends than I do the elite quarterbacks and how my team looks at the end. I mean, it's especially largely because of Brock Bowers, where like, if you looked at him as far as like what wide receivers did in their first year and what they went on to be, like, he just looks like Justin Jefferson. And of course, like, I don't think he's going to have an 1,800-yard season at any point in his career. Like Justin Jefferson, I believe, has had, if not, he's got like high 17s. But when you look at guys who are as productive as he were as rookies at wide receiver, it's like just a who's who of future superstars. So like I can see the vision of where he's the greatest tight end of all time. Like, I mean, he is the greatest rookie of all time, probably the greatest prospect of all time, at least, up there in terms of probably one of the best 3 or so prospects, and the greatest rookie by a country mile. There's just not another tight end who can even hold a candle to him. In the same way that like you look at, Jamar Chase's rookie year was one of the best rookie years ever. Like Puka's year, and obviously he was hurt last year, but when he was on the field, he was like the wide receiver 2 in points per game. Guys who were elite at like 3 or 4 standard deviations beyond, not just really good, but truly the best of the best across positions. I think the pass catching positions really illustrate this, end up being so good for their career that I can see the vision a little bit where Brock Bowers is a guy who we take at like 103 next year. I'm like, yeah, you just take the guy who gets 1,400 yards at tight end. The elite quarterbacks is one where I do end up just generally en masse liking my teams better when I have 3 mediocre quarterbacks.
Yeah. And I think, part of the reason I do agree, like the elite quarterback opportunity cost feels a little higher than the elite tight end opportunity cost, but there's also like that batch of tight ends. And maybe the reason it doesn't feel as big is because there's the swath of quarterbacks available is even greater than the available tight ends that feel really good. But like, man, I hit that stretch of like Goddard, Ferguson, and Kincaid, where obviously Kincaid needed to drop from last year, but it's like Goddard's situation is unchanged. Ferguson's situation, sure, maybe he loses a little target share to Pickens, but like that overall offensive environment should be better. And like these guys are priced like 50 picks cheaper than they were last year. And I'm like, God, I just want to continue to like gobble this up, where it's like if you're getting an 8th or 9th round tight end value in round 12 or 13, that really feels good.
Yeah. And you want to get multiple of those too. It's not just like, I think it's good to pair one of those guys with Brock Bowers. Like you get who could be a true superstar tight end, like that we have barely ever seen before, and still pair him with a second good player. But at the end of the day, like the value is kind of I think I'm so Brock Bowers told him like, yeah, he's just good value at pick 16 or whatever. But in general, the value at tight end is very much clearly in that pocket. Maybe, like you said, maybe the only difference is that the value could be even better at the quarterback pocket, where you could especially see the upside for some of these players. Where like, I don't see a season in which Dallas Goedert finishes as the tight end 2 or 3. Or like,
True.
you could sell me on Drake Maye having that season where like he is both a dynamic runner. I think he has the most yards per carry for a quarterback since Michael Vick. Like he is such an elite scrambler and runner with the ball in his hands. Of course, he's not going to do it at the volume of other high volume rushing quarterbacks, but he is truly like dynamic with the ball in his hands, has a cannon for an arm. I could see him getting to a top 5 season, right? A top 4-ish season. I could see that with Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick, gets an incredible situation upgrade, incredible talent upgrade, offensive line upgrade, coaching upgrade. You can see how he would come together and put together a truly, you kind of had to have it in this range season. I think you're probably just looking at strong advance rates across the board at tight end.
Yep. Yeah. One other last thing to put a bow on this team, if we were to continue to kind of nitpick what we did, how do you think, is this running back room a little thin? 0 RB room, starts out with 2 rookies, finishes with 5. Corum most likely is 0. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe a pinch thin. I think that's where the Stafford 1v1 of him versus just straight up taking a running back comes into play, or the 2, there weren't great running back options at the Jaden Daniels pick, but that's where like the quarterback opportunity cost comes into play of either elite or third. But at none of those spots did we really feel like we're like, oh, there's a really tough decision at a good running back cost here. So ultimately, like, not every team is just going to have the best running back looking room because the board doesn't afford it to you. I don't think there are any like mistakes we made at any point to say like this just should be a better team when it comes to running back specifically.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, the bet you're making is when you have a 5 running back team like that, you're just saying, hey, at least one of Harvey or Judkins gets off to a really fast start, and they're a top 12 running back right out of the gate. And it's not like we're waiting till week 12 for Sean Payton to stop using Audric Estime.
Yeah. Well, now that you said that, I feel worse, but thanks anyway.
Any other kind of like meta takes or things you've noticed about the best ball market this year? Or maybe if it could be a specific player stand you're trying to hammer right now, or structure. I know you said you've been drafting a lot on DraftKings right now, but anything stand out?
Yeah, I'm surprised, and I would normally say this is good, that we didn't overreact to what happened last year. This is specifically like the running back wide receiver dynamic, that we didn't overreact to 1 year of data. But man, they're, the dusty running backs, they didn't move up an inch a year after they were all really good picks. And I think some of them now are good picks specifically because we didn't move them up, because in almost every other draft environment we've had outside of the past 2 years, James Conner is like a 2-3 turn pick, despite being like an older running back with spotty injury history and a day 2 running back behind him. But now he's super cheap. So I do think of all the times we react to previous seasons, we could have done it in any ounce this year, and like mostly the receiver prices are the same. They've looked at least closer to last year than they do any other year of BBM drafting. They're a little bit, the receivers are a little bit priced down and the running backs are a little bit priced up last year, but I'm surprised we didn't return more to a 2022 drafting environment.
Yeah, it was like the market basically said, we're not going to devalue wide receivers in this new landscape, but we are going to push running backs up a bit. And so then where does that mean we are going to have a sacrifice? What's getting pushed down? Okay, it's the mid-tier quarterbacks and tight ends. Like that's
I was going to say the tight ends make perfect sense too, because we're coming off a year where elite tight end had like, did it have any good hits? Because the elite tight ends that we have this year were way too underpriced George Kittle and way too underpriced Brock Bowers, who didn't meet like elite tight end ADP threshold. So yeah, there was no, like the best hits were clearly not at tight end early.
Yeah. Kyle, let the people know what's going on. You working on anything over at Rotoworld right now?
Actually, I am working on some wide receiver stuff. I was talking about how you can look at the superstars of today and see like what they looked like as rookies. I say this specifically because we had such an awesome, fun rookie class that just came out. Some obvious disappointments like MHJ and like Rome, and then some true superstars in the making, and figure out like what the career trajectory might look like for them. So it'll probably be out like later this week. Don't expect that tonight. Like you're not getting that tonight, man. Check out the Rotoworld football show if you need something for the next 48 hours.
There you go. Well, Kyle, appreciate you subbing in for Patty Millions here today, and we'll catch you over on Rotoworld and LegUp and all that good stuff.
I'll see you around.
All right, peace, man. All right, welcoming Mr. Mike Leone to the stage, rocking his Under Armour running shirt. I did a little run this morning before the show, but the complete opposite end of the spectrum of you. I was doing a little sprints, no ultras, no extreme marathoning for me, Michael.
No zone 2.
No, we're getting the heart rate going with some sprints up a hill, like a real man, not out here speed walking.
Trying to cheat time on feet there, Peter.
That's right. How are we doing? We missed you last week. No best ball breakfast with Memorial Day. Obviously, New York drafts back in the mix for you. Where are you at in the best ball headspace right now?
Yeah, it's been fun getting some drafts in. I started like 10 slows in Best Ball Mania and fired off a handful of fast drafts. So feel a little bit more acclimated. Doing a lot of different builds, but probably swaying more running back early builds than I did last year. I think that'll change a little bit as the offseason progresses.
What are the slow draft streets like right now? You're probably not through any like significant rounds yet, I'd guess.
Yeah, I'm finishing a couple of them.
Oh, okay.
So I jumped in 10 like fairly quickly. I think since we last did the show over the last 2 weeks. So most of them are in like the teens rounds by now.
And have you noticed any, notable difference between fast draft rooms and those? I feel like that's a question everyone brings up. They asked you about the like manifesto data of like slow drafts versus fast drafts. Anything anecdotally that's different?
I think you're less likely to get someone that just makes like an obvious mistake. Someone gets caught on auto draft, or dare I say, Gilbert Arenas is in your draft. Like you don't really see that in the slow draft streets.
Please, we're trying to just get through 1 week of a fake controversy on Underdog. Please don't mention Mr. Agent Zero wide receivers. Yeah.
So I think and the data that I looked at for the manifesto supports this, that the fasts are easier, but it's like one of those things where if you did over 150 drafts, like, maybe you advance like an extra team on average, which I don't want to say like is not a big deal, but it's not like, I think some people get worried like, oh, if I can't fast draft, I'm dead. And that's definitely not true.
Yes, for sure. We got David asking, he's got 12 Best Ball Mania bullets. He's allocated these and he's wondering, when does he start firing? This is the age old question. When to draft? What's the official Mike Leone recommendation with 12 bullets?
So he asked about late July specifically. That was kind of a sweet spot when I had done the manifesto of like, you can still get this really big closing line ADP value, but the drafters probably start getting like a touch more casual, and you also get more meaningful information that time of year for your late round picks to not have as many dead players late. So I think late July, early August is a good time to draft. That said, like, the mechanics of like, not mechanics, but the sort of behavior, I guess, of the underdog player pool is always evolving each year. Like we talked about already, the edge that you had drafting immediately this year was like way smaller window than it was in past years. So I'm always careful to not overly extrapolate that old data. But I do think just from not even having to do with your competition standpoint, trying to find a time when you can get big closing line ADP value, but you have enough information that your late round picks aren't as pure gambly as they probably are now is time to draft.
And the other tag I always make to that conversation is like, what do you think your strengths are? Because I think drafting at different times of the year like plays to different strengths. If you're a news hound, and you want to, take advantage of that in August, when these guys are bubbling up and really pounce on that stuff. If you think you're someone who can come up with ranks better than, the market ahead of time, like you want to get in those drafts right away because you feel like you have an edge there. So I don't know. I think knowing like where your strengths are can be helpful. And Zach asks, I know it's not really important, but have any of the BBM winners come from a slow? No, they haven't. But that's also a classic sampling size issue, right? Like what percentage of drafts do you know are slow versus fast?
Man, I'd have to check. Off the top of my head, I want to say like 20%, but that's really a guess.
Yeah, but it is smaller for sure.
It's definitely smaller, and we've still only had 5. Also, I think like the biggest edge, honestly, would be just getting out of your league anyways, than, more so than it would be in the playoff weeks.
Yes.
Peter, we just love the back end of the first round.
We do. Yeah, we got the 110 here. Michael and I in a Best Ball Mania draft, see some friends and family here. We got Crutches, JGFC, Lee. We got Clay Dog in here. So setting up to be a tough draft. My guy JGFC, back-to-back drafts, or maybe it was my first draft, taking CMC, kind of head at ADP here. I know that's a conversation right now of maybe CMC moving up. We'll see what we're cooking with here. Neighbors, Genty, Nico, Brian Thomas. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I kind of like going Neighbors. We started a team with Genty already, and it's so close that I think I'd take Neighbors in this spot. We're like a touch behind ADP on Neighbors, and whenever you're a touch behind someone in the first round, you can end up being like way more underexposed than you want. So him being at 10, I think is fine. Plus, I'm a little scared of this room being wide receiver happy.
Yes, that is it's a safe assumption. The draft I just did with Kyle, I mean, the quarterbacks were falling huge. Like Dak went at 140,
Wow.
Penix went at like 160. So yeah, it was a room there where the room was perfectly content playing chicken there with the wide receiver. So we go Neighbors, and wow, everyone else feeling similarly. Genty still on the board at pick 13 here. I assume Lee will gobble him up. Yep. Yeah, we have a question from I think it's his second year playing best ball. Didn't have a great first year, but is trying to improve. And his name is Davis Mattek. I think Davis, or maybe it's Davis. It says, shouldn't we take just 8.2% of every player, Michael?
Hey, listen, I had like 25% Kyle Pitts last year, and I still crushed you in advance rate, Davis. So.
We're on the clock here. Do we do another Derrick Henry team? AJ Brown, Brock Bowers. What do you like?
I'd probably go Henry here. Yeah, I think I'd go Henry here.
All right, let's grab Derrick Henry. We start Derrick Henry and Malik Neighbors.
AJ, any of those three I think would have been fine. But jokes aside on I think I end up with like not as balanced of a player pool as people think. When I do like the LegUp Jacquard similarity scores, I do generally end up with a really high diversity score, but I do lots of different builds. So I get players in lots of different combinations. So like my builds end up diversified, even if I'm somewhat heavy on players. Like I'll generally have like 5 players around 20% plus, and there will be a lot of players that I, come close to hard fading as well, which I think happens for me a little bit more than it is that I'm like crazy exposed on the high end to a player.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, and obviously it comes up with the exposure stuff, and one thing is like in season long drafts, when you're managing it, the player pool actually like shrinks to a pretty big degree, because like what you're trying to accomplish and the archetypes and stuff. Whereas in best ball, and I know I've heard you say it too, like there's almost a price on every player, certainly like the top 100 players, where you would take them at a certain price because they could do something for your team. Can you explain for people, and maybe myself included, for wrapping their head around that concept? Why is the player pool so much bigger for viable selections in best ball versus managed?
Yeah, I feel like the best example of this are the wide receivers in like let's say like Adam Thielen, Wan'Dale Robinson. I guess Thielen that did show some upside, but like these people that are going to see the field that probably don't have meaningful upside, right? If you're in a managed league, these guys are sort of just wasting a roster spot. They're not someone that you want to start that has this high end upside, but they're eating up a bench spot where you could just be turning over players who are much worse bets to score 10 points on a given week, but you're just trying to run into a home run. Like you're stashing, handcuff running backs and hoping they hit. You're stashing rookies and hoping they break out over the course of the season, because you can generally go to the wire if you're desperate on a week and find, a Zay Jones of a few years ago to like plug into your lineup and be okay. Best ball, we can't go to the waiver wire if we need those players. So just having those usable scores in our lineup is huge. We can't churn over those roster spots. So in manage, like that one spot could be like 10 bets over the course of a season. In best ball, it's one bet. You take Jaydon Blue, that's one bet on a rookie running back. and you're stuck with that bet. You can't turn him over to like 6 other bets as you get more information.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like say you were in rough shape in like week 5 of a managed league and you're going to the waiver wire and you need a wide receiver, you're going to pick the guy who projects the best in week 5, right? To like fill that hole. You know, you're not going to go here. I want to flesh this out, but let's make our picks here. By ADP, Kyron, Josh Allen, Lamar, Breece Hall, Worthy. By rank, you're looking at Allen, Lamar, Kyron. What do you think here?
Yeah, I kind of wish we went AJ Brown the previous round is what I think.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy, Tet are the wide receivers.
I think I might take Worthy a little early here just on this room. And then I feel like based on what's going to come back to us is like probably going to be a non-wide receiver pick. So I just want to get ahead of it there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's make this pick and then we can talk a bit more about that best ball and season long difference. Because I do think it helps orient how you think about selections and why, you know, the point I was getting at is you might pick up a wide receiver you don't like as a bye week fill-in. It's like, yeah, you don't love that guy. You'd rather pick up a rookie to stash him on your bench that you think is going to break out in week 17, but that's not helping you in week 5 when you need wide receiver production. So the gross picks serve a purpose here. Kyron Williams, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, and Breece Hall come off the board here. So you could get, didn't we do an Allen?
We
Henry
did do
team?
an Allen team.
Yeah.
I'm torn between Allen and Tet here. Or DJ Moore. I think any of those 3 are viable. I don't think I would go James Cook here, given our start. You have a preference here, Peter?
I've been just like loving my teams more without the elite QB, so I push for the wide receiver, but I'm not opposed.
Yeah, let's go receiver then.
Okay. We can grab Tet here at ADP.
I have been liking Allen. I don't take him every time in that spot, and we already did one with him, so it's kind of fun to do a team that's a little more wide receiver heavy. We haven't had one of those, I don't think, yet so far. But Allen is way more stackable now with the prices on the other guys, which we, you know, I think we double stacked him. We almost had a chance to triple stack him the week that we took him.
Setting aside us pulling up the wide receiver head of ADP because we were worried about positional runs. Do you want to make the projection case for Xavier Worthy? He seems to be kind of a polarizing topic. Obviously, the Rashee Rice domino, didn't get to see them play alongside each other, you know, when Worthy broke out. How are you guys thinking about the KC situation?
There's a few things at play. I just saw JJ Zachariason, you know, tweet out something on teams that'll probably score more touchdowns this year than last year. Kansas City was definitely one of those teams that looks like they're going to score a bit more this year. So I think Kansas City's passing game in general is a little bit undervalued. Then you start breaking down the volume stuff. Yes, Baltimore threw more, you know, since they've changed their offense the last couple of years under Monken, but it's still a run heavier team. So there's just way more volume to be had in terms of pass attempts through the KC team. And I think too, Baltimore might even be, you know, a stronger all-around team. So game script wise, we could see KC have to throw more in addition to their inclination to throw more. They're one of the highest pass rate over expectation teams year in and year out. So those systemic reasons, I think have Worthy a little undervalued. Do like Flowers a good bit. Like I think he's a great player, but the Rice stuff I know is tough for people to wrap their heads around, with him likely coming in and being the clear top guy in target share. But you've got Travis Kelce falling off a little bit. You're playing with one of the best passing quarterbacks of all time. I think there's room for 2 guys to eat. We saw the late season breakout that you want to see out of a rookie in Xavier Worthy. And even in the regular season, he just missed on like a lot of bombs and stuff. So like if you're looking purely at the data, like some of the yards per out run stuff doesn't look very strong, but there are a couple plays away from like they like didn't hit on any. So I really think the variance will come back around his way this year on some of those big plays.
What do you think about like this move? So Lee, Chad Maschke here from the 12th hole, very sharp drafter, did Lamar and Zay. It is hard to get Lamar and Zay together just based on them both being kind of 4th round picks. So you kind of do have to get creative to get him. Do you think this is a flat enough tier to pull up Zay Flowers to get that correlation? Or is this a move that would make you squirmish?
I think in this spot, it makes sense, especially like this is a room that went pretty wide receiver heavy to start. So yeah, some of it, you're playing him at a little bit ahead of ADP, but a lot of the wide receivers are going that early and you've already got a running back spot and you basically have to take wide receiver there. So I think at that point, taking the correlations totally fine.
Mixon almost came back to us. This is definitely a wide receiver heavy room. RJ Harvey, Chuba, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara, the top by ADP. Olave sneaks in there if we sort by rank. What do you think?
I like Chuba here, going in on Carolina.
Yeah.
As the tiebreaker with a few running backs being top of the board. Also, if you click the solver thing, there's like a playoff widget that I like to use in the Chrome symbol at the bottom. I think the playoff matchups widget.
Oh, okay, sweet. All right, that's now pulled up on screen. Yeah, it was funny because Pat and I had a conversation about Chuba Tet in correlation, and it was almost this exact same spot. And it was like, yes, you want to break those ties, but I also don't necessarily want to have Chuba on every single one of my Tet teams, which is one of those weird things about correlation where if the ADPs line up in a way, it's like a very justifiable selection. But if you zoom out a little bit, you're like, wait, I can't be making this decision over and over.
Yeah. Again. No, I agree. You want to diversify it. As a one-off, I think it makes sense to just bet on the offense doing well. But yeah, you wouldn't want to make that decision every time.
All right, so we start. We got two running backs, Derrick Henry and Chuba, wide receivers, neighbors, Xavier Worthy and Tet McMillan. About to pick here at 6'3". Jennings, Olave, and Godwin come off the board after we take Chuba. So the room stays thirsty for wide receivers again. We might be able to get a nice value on Kenneth Walker, depending on the what here. Jerry Jeudy creeping in. He goes RJ Harvey. It is hard to pass on Kenneth Walker at this price.
Yeah, I take Walker for a couple of reasons. One, he's past ADP a decent bit. I mean, all the running backs are, given how this room is going. But I just like Walker a ton. Correlation aside, I think I like him more than Chuba. So then to get Walker on the wraparound, I don't think he's a 6th-round pick. Did a podcast with Levitan and Herzig recently, and we were talking about like if people are overreacting to the running backs doing well last year. And one of the examples I gave, like we're still looking at like 5-6 turn Kenneth Walker, not like 5-6 turn Mike Davis from a handful of years ago. So I don't think we've reached the point where, we've totally overreacted to the running backs doing well for 1 year. Does put us in a tricky spot, but we still have 3 wide receivers through 6. Is going to lend itself probably towards, a 3 QB, 3 tight end build, most likely. Just because we're going to want to not fall behind at wide receiver, and we're not going to have to take more than 5 running backs with 3 through 6.
And this is the kind of pick. So this starts to illustrate kind of why I tend to want to pass on Josh Allen where we did, because then it frees you up to grab the Kenneth Walker faller, where if we have Josh Allen and then we only have 2 wide receivers and then also grab the Walker value, now we're really behind the 8 ball at wide receiver, especially if there's another positional run and we're having to grab Trey Harris at pick 82 or something. So I do kind of just like the flexibility it gives you. And then also looking at the specific players we've selected, obviously neighbors, you can do Dart late if you want. Tet, Bryce Young is cheap. Even if you want to build something with Kenneth Walker, Sam Darnold is cheap. So you can kind of start to see like, hey, if I'm going to front load all my running back and wide receiver selections, I can see on the draft board how it will be easy for me to still find my quarterback production.
You also end up with Mahomes in that spot. You've seen it with Baker, those pocket quarterbacks where if one of the drafters, like the Evans drafter or the Rice drafter, just decide they don't want to go that direction, Mahomes can last into the 90s. And then at that point, he can, you could do a 2 quarterback build, but he can be cheap enough that it's the start of a 3 quarterback build.
Yeah. And like the spot I found myself with Kyle just before, we did a Jaden Daniels team with Terry. And then it was just like all purple at pick 120. So, naturally with a leg up guy, we had to draft Drake Maye, but then we had Stafford fall 25 picks past ADP on a Puka team. And it was like, all right, we're just taking the 3rd quarterback. stacked up, super cheap. That's the only downside too of those 2 quarterback builds is you sometimes find yourself in a spot where you're like, man, if I just gotten 3 quarterbacks, not only would it have worked out, but I would have gotten it at a really nice value too.
Yeah, and that's where you got to be willing to gamble a little bit late. But I definitely leaned more 3 quarterback builds. We have Allen and Lamar ranked highly. I feel like I end up with more Allen than Lamar. But part
why
of
is that, Michael? Could it have anything?
Yeah, why is that?
To do with your laundry preferences?
I can pretend it's an objective stacking thing, but that's not even real because you can stack Lamar pretty easily with Bateman and Andrews late too, even if you've missed out on Zay.
Yes. Yeah. I've been seeing a few matchups here or mentions. The Lions All Pro and Pro Bowl center Frank Ragnow is retiring, so I've seen some comments about that in the chat. Look at this! Finally, get a wide receiver to fall to us. A rookie wide receiver.
Oh yeah.
Matthew Golden opposite the big dog for a man who said, give me rookies or give me death, and also called his shot that guys like Matthew Golden would get cheaper right about now. Does that feel good?
That feels good.
Yeah. That does feel good.
Look at this. First year and second year players.
Wow. This man. God damn it. I keep forgetting to play your intro music. Let's do it again.
Paul Pezlesny.
You're a psychopath.
Travis Kelce. Alpha play. Jamar. Alpha play Chase.
Give me rookies or give me death.
Felt fitting after Matthew Golden selection.
We just save it for when we take a rookie and it jogs our memory.
Matthew Golden obviously giving us another late round quarterback out with Jordan Love. Although we'll still be presented with the Mahomes decision here, I imagine. Do you like Mahomes at 87 if he's here?
Can you go to the wide receivers?
Yeah. Wide receivers by ADP is Cup, Igbuka, Burden, Higgins. By rank, Pittman, Shaheed, Igbuka, Cup. God. Igbuka goes.
I'd probably go Cup or Mahomes here. I think I would go Mahomes. It's tough just knowing we have lots of guys out, but this will let us be greedy with our second quarterback still. We can be real greedy with the stack there. I think I'd go Mahomes here.
Yeah. Yep. And I will say, like, the amount of times I've done a draft and I've been like, the Stroud, Lawrence, Jordan Love, like that cluster. I'm like, I'm going to get 2 of them. And it's just like, those guys always have a way of evaporating quickly too. So it's nice to have your quarterback options at different prices. That's sometimes why I like having the Bryce Young, Cam Ward, because like that's in a different range, or the Geno and Sam Darnold. Yeah. It's like when they're all clustered in the same range, it's like you only have 1 pick there. You do have to pull up a guy to generally get 2 of them.
That's a great point. I feel like in redraft that happens to me a lot when there's like the 0 RB guys that like I really like, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get all these guys, and then they all go, like in a 3 round span when everyone's drafting the backup running backs, and you get like 1 or 2. There's also I've had Kelce fall back to the turn too. We don't have a tight end yet.
Yes. Yeah, so here's our team through 8 rounds. We got a 1-3-4. We got Mahomes at quarterback, the big dog Chuba and Kenneth Walker at running back. Neighbors Xavier Worthy, Tet, and Golden here. No tight ends, but in good shape everywhere else. And yeah, that Golden pick too is kind of the one where it's like those earlier decisions can either feel really gross or you can feel completely validated to grabbing the running back fallers when you can pull off, I think, a strong selection in that range.
He was the last of its here. We definitely would have been a little sad if we were, taking Cooper Kupp there. I mean, Kupp's fine, but, from both ADP and the ETR rank standpoint, it would have been a tier drop off after Golden.
Yep. Yeah. Have you guys pushed? I know you guys were already low on Luther Burden, obviously, as the soft tissue stuff now. Pearsall is well dealing. I think it's a hamstring. Have you guys been docking these guys? How do you think about injuries through the lens of, it is only June, and yet for rookies that can impact their, progression?
We haven't docked them too much, but like you said, they're 2 players that we're already really far behind ADP on. So there hasn't been a ton of impetus to. So the way we're looking at these players too is like longer term plays, I guess, which makes, you're not ignoring the injury, but it makes it a little, I guess, more palatable at our level of expectation. And that's kind of what's interesting with the, the rookie ADP stuff is like people get real thirsty for the rookies right out of the NFL draft. Sometimes when we get closer to the season, people forget that these are long-term plays. And it's like, oh, this rookie's, not going to start, to begin the season. It's like, well, that was never, for a lot of these guys, not the reason you were drafting them in the first place. So it is important to, I guess, kind of look at it both ways. Like guard yourself from rookie fever early, understanding some of these guys could be zeros, but then later in the offseason, guard yourself from becoming too much of a depth chart like slave.
Can I present a counter argument to your San Francisco market share and projections from Brent Wilson? Don't fade the Rizzler, Rizzy P crown emoji. What do you say to that retort?
I don't understand very many of the words in that retort.
Oh man. Leone still catching up on his memes here. We're going to be picking in round 9 here at 9-10. We got that 1, 3, 4, 1. We can see here if Kelce falls to us to give us that clean double stack with Mahomes, Jalen Warren, Rashid Shaheed, the other here. But Kelce looks like the best pick as far as rankings and ADP. And he goes, I knew I fucking jinxed that, to the Brock Bowers.
Hoping that was already a tight end team. So I was like, I think we got a good chance at it, but they didn't want us. They didn't want us to have nice things. I would be going wide receiver here, given our start.
Or do you want to pull up Hollywood, or maybe we can sit on Hollywood?
I mean, normally what I would do is probably try to risk Hollywood coming back.
Yeah.
The ADPs.
Okay.
Shaheed being someone that is both the ADP play and just someone the ETR ranks. Like, I'd also...
Yeah, you guys have him at it was, I think, 93 I saw, and we got him here at 106. So you guys are meaningfully ahead on him.
Yeah. Still not a ton of target competition there. Hoping he can stay healthy, really good yards per route run guy. I think he's going to give you a good amount of spike weeks with, some wish casting for more if he can handle more volume.
Yes. I'm more mad at Chief Dale too, because I just realized he took Kelce on a Bowers team, but he also has Allen and Dalton Kincaid. I mean, how are you not setting up the Dalton Kincaid there? I'm over it though. We've moved on. You like Ingram just went, so no week 17 bring back there. We could, now pull up Hollywood, although still a ways down the road. Bateman here. We got the running back.
I think I'd go Hollywood, but it's either Hollywood or basically saying it's a 4 running back team. We're going to finish it off.
Right. I like having the flexibility to still take a running back selection. So I'd probably lean wide receiver.
Yeah, let's go Hollywood. We already made a couple sacrifices at wide receiver. I don't want to keep doing it. And obviously we get the correlation here.
How do you think about, so one thing that I don't know if this is good process or if this is a bad way to think about things. On a team where I have Derrick Henry, Chuba, Kenneth Walker, I feel really good about my running back room. I feel really good about my projected touches. I look at the type of running backs here that are best available, Najee, Tyrone, Tracy specifically. And I'm just like, I feel like the value of those guys is almost like their floor of production as opposed to like a huge league winning swing. Are you thinking through like a player profile there? Or are you kind of agnostic to what that 4th running back is?
No, I think the archetype matters. I mean, like at a certain point, I'll just take the value. Like if Najee, falls a ton behind ADP and he's the clear pick, like I won't not take him because of the room, but I'd prefer more of an upsidey pick as my 4th running back, knowing that like I'm not drafting this person for production the first 6 weeks of the season. I'm drafting this person because they're either going to have the upside to fill my flex or, they just can take over a job over the second half of the year. So you're basically with these builds planning on your running back staying relatively healthy. You can dodge some missed weeks and stretches here and there. If one of these top 3 running backs goes down for the season, it's sort of like probably not going to win anyways, I guess, mindset, especially with Henry, maybe not so much with Chuba and Walker. I think Tracy might have I think we view him as having a little more upside than the market does. He did show some explosiveness. He's got some pass catching chops. I know they've talked about him having issues in pass protection and obviously drafting Scatterboo, and people are, rightfully have some concerns there. But I do think he has, you can twist it and make yourself feel like he's got enough of the upside to, be picked as the RB4 in that spot.
Yeah. And I think I've definitely been on the Scatterbo side of that mostly, but it's not hard to see how that couldn't also break in Tyrone Tracy's favor. I think the thing that's scary about Scatterbo is just the many different ways he can win, whether it's, hey, they trust him in pass protection, which is a skill set he showed. He's also really good in short yardage stuff. So, okay, maybe he just gets the goal line or that. And so it's like, there's a lot of attack vectors that Tyrone Tracy has to hold him off. Whereas I think it's easier maybe for other rookie backs to be like, they might just not be good and like might not get on the field and just have a redshirt year. It just seems a little harder to envision that happening to Scatterbo.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then like late on these types of builds, there's guys like, I don't know, Shipley, Jalen Wright, that kind of fit. I feel like where you're hoping for an injury in front, something breaking right with the depth chart. You can save those guys too, to the point of us taking Hollywood ahead of ADP rather than taking one of those running backs there, just knowing that the types that make sense for this build are available later.
All right, we are about to pick in the 11th round. We got the Mahomes double stack. We got Derrick Henry, Chuba, Kenneth Walker. Did get up to 6 wide receivers there. It looks like tight end would be nice for us here. We'll see what the drafter in front of us does. I dare Chief Dale to take a 3rd tight end, but we should be able to get Goddard or Kincaid here if that strikes your fancy.
Yeah, I think we got to get our first tight end here. I'm so used to having like one tight end at this point.
Do you have
maybe lean a little bit Kincaid just on ADP, and maybe we take 2 tight ends. There's also, what's Love's ADP?
That's a good question here. Love's ADP is 134, and we pick at 135.
All right, let's go Kincaid, and we don't have a ton of time here, so I'm good going Kincaid. And then I think our pick on the way back is probably Love or Goddard.
Are you Kincaid over Goddard? I mean, clearly that's what we just did, but do you want to speak on that?
I think they're really close. Goddard's got, a more solidified role in terms of the tight end role. It's more solidified. Kincaid, you're still going to have the annoying knock stuff where he plays some of the red zone stuff. But Kincaid's target per route run upside's much higher than Goddard's. So I guess I'm still selling myself on maybe he wasn't fully healthy last year and there is a route towards him hitting a really high end ceiling. But I think it's very close. And there I was kind of like, well, let's take the guy with the earlier ADP and give ourselves more options. But I would take Kincaid, I think, slightly ahead of Goddard. We have him like 2 spots apart in our rankings.
So this is an interesting spot. Do you take Jordan Love or do you grab Goddard, who's still here as our 2nd tight end, and say, hey, there is Bryce Young, there's Jackson Dart, there's Tyler Shuck as other quarterback options?
Yeah. I lean a little towards taking Love just because we're so ahead on Dobbs and he's generally there the next turn. I don't know if that would be the case in this room, but like just knowing that I'm going to be able to get that double stack. What do you think? Oh, it's Love, so
I think, I did Love there. I think as much as I like the Goddard, Ferguson, Kincaid tier at tight end, I think you could find yourself in kind of a gross spot where like you're having to do a 3 quarterback build with like Mahomes, Dart, and Shuck, which maybe isn't that gross. But I kind of like the value there of Jordan Love. We get both Love and Golden past ADP.
Yeah, I maybe should force myself to do more of those QB rooms that you just mentioned, like a Mahomes with 2 very late. That's something I haven't done as much as I'd like to do, where you get like one not super late quarterback, like early mid, like Mahomes. You get one safe guy late, maybe it's a Stafford, whoever it is, and then you take like the Dart or the A-Rich upside swing as your 3rd guy. And you really were able to save those last 2 quarterbacks to the rounds, like 16, 17 or so.
Yep. Here's the team so far through 12, 2, 3, 6, 1. Mahomes stacked up with Worthy and Hollywood. We got Jordan Love stacked up with Matthew Golden. We also get the week 17 bonus of the bring back with the big dog there, which I also love. Like, you know, we don't want to be in the business of predicting game flows even 1 week out, much less 17. But the big dog getting the Ravens a lead and the Packers being forced to throw certainly makes some logical sense to me. The other running backs, Chuba and Walker, the other wide receivers, Neighbors, Tet, and Shaheed, and then Kincaid holding it down for us at tight end.
Yeah, and I think Kraft probably went, right?
Kraft went right before we right before we selected Kincaid.
So we might get in a weird spot tight end wise.
I feel like I never get much Kraft. It is hard, like around the like Warren if you want that upside, and then you got the like Njoku, Goddard, Kincaid, Ferguson. I don't know. I probably am going to have to force a little bit more Kraft because he just doesn't come to me naturally.
I don't get very much Kraft either. It's either he's fallen past those guys because I'm in a room where other people don't like him, or I've got a Jordan Love team. That's pretty much the only time I've gotten Kraft. Probably should have foreseen Dobbs not making it back to us, given the wide receiver thirst in this room.
Yeah. Not the end of the world here. You could do Wan'Dale Robinson and have another New York Giants bet there. Kyle Pitts, if you want to.
I've probably taken Kyle Pitts here. This is my excuse to take Kyle Pitts. I feel
look
like
at this.
If we look at tight end, I mean, I think that's the play.
Look at this. I mean, it is. Michael and I would have drafted this team on June 2nd, 2024. We would have just gone Dalton Kincaid in round 5 and then been like, well, Kyle Pitts just slid to the back end of round 6. Should we just do it? 2 elite tight ends. Now we get him at pick 130 and 154. What a deal.
Bryce Young goes. That person's probably going Young. Thielen. What's the wide receiver sitch here?
Let's see. Yeah, wide receiver, you're looking at Thielen, Wan'Dale Robinson, Noel, Douglas. By ADP, it's Noel, Thielen, Wan'Dale, Pat Bryant.
Man, you could argue for either archetype for our team. We're kind of in terms of like sometimes it's clear like, oh, I'm going to go Noel here and get rookie upside, or I'm going to go Thielen. I need some usable weeks. We're kind of like right in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, Noel goes. So.
And Thielen. I kind of like Wan'Dale here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
like
also.
We could take the really late dart thing if we want to, but we don't have to.
Yep. Yeah, I like that too. You could do like a Theo Johnson, third tight end dart for kind of a bigger Giants bet. Or you can just be done, like you said, with Mahomes and Love. And we had 3 running backs too. So we've freed up some, running back selections as well, having that kind of top heavy start.
Yeah, we're probably back to taking 5 running backs when we passed on that Tracy Najee tier. And if I start something like, I don't know, I think I have a team with like Saquon, Josh Jacobs, and James Cook, right? Like that, I'm probably stopping at 4 almost no matter what my 4th looks like. Yeah. But this room, it's a little less capital early than like that example is pretty extreme as far as a hyper fragile build goes. So we can afford to go to 5.
Yes. And I also think, especially this time of the year where the round 17 and 18 running back and wide receiver selections aren't as strong as they will be in August when we get more information, I do think I'm more willing to loosen up how I think about typical positional structures of just grabbing the best player. Like in the first draft I did a 3 tight end room with McBride, Hunter Henry, and Zach Ertz. And someone was like, why a 3 tight end build with McBride? And I was like, well, Hunter Henry fell 20 picks past ADP and I didn't like the other options. And I'm just going to take the best player on the team. And I think you can do that right now where it's like, yeah, ideally it could be a 4 running back team, but it's like, if the 2 best picks are running backs, like I'm not going to just force a shitty wide receiver selection.
And that's where you have to think a little critically in your draft. It's like more nuanced than people realize because people are evaluating your team on paper and seeing the 3 tight ends and going, why? But they're not seeing what your alternatives were at that point in time in the draft.
Yes, for sure. And like, yes, like there are hindsight elements. Like you can go back and look at 2v2s of like, oh yeah, maybe I would like to have this back ideally, but unfortunately the picks have already been made and all you can do is make the best possible pick in the round that you're in. We're at a 2-3-7-2. Mahomes, Jordan Love, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts. We're probably going to want to take a third tight end here. And yeah, like you said, wide receiver in good shape with 4 more picks to go.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anyone on Denver for the week 17 bring back, but I don't think we missed most of that.
There is but he's going to go.
Oh yeah, for in this room, he's definitely going to go.
Yeah, and then we already got the Green Bay or the Baltimore bring back for Green Bay. I actually think with Denver, like you can, Troy Franklin late isn't the worst start throw. Like
no, it's
not
not
best, but it's not the worst.
There's
he comes back.
He's there. I know we have him ranked poorly, but I would take him in this spot with the correlation. And we did I was talking last pick how we could kind of go either way with the wide receiver archetype, and we went with like sort of the boring, kind of floor production. So we'll take the upside correlated rookie.
And now this works out really well because I think we're for sure taking a third tight end. I think we're for sure taking a 4th running back, and then we could kind of decide 5th running back or 3rd QB.
Yeah, same page.
Yeah, I like how Pat Bryant on this team is kind of perfect. Not only do you get the bring back, we kind of we're trying to make up for our lack of quality kind of with the Shaheed and Hollywood clicks, and getting Robinson and Pat Bryant. Those are kind of a good yin yang for the type of profiles like a target magnet and a black box mystery rookie. I think work well there to round that room out.
Yeah. And this is where like I'll probably like click boost on RB for the solver stuff, just knowing we.
Yeah. So Schultz, Taylor, Corum, Ford.
I might go Lloyd here and stick with the Green Bay.
I just told everybody I'm out of the MarShawn Lloyd business, but I can do this for you. I get it from the correlated.
You don't have to. We could go. You like Corum better, or who's your running back pick here?
Can we do a tight end first?
Yeah,
which of these tight ends do you like?
We could do tight end first.
Who do you like?
Schultz probably.
Okay. Yes, so my thing with the MarShawn Lloyd is he was my second most drafted running back so far. And then I got to see the tweet that he's practicing with the rehab group. And I'm just like, I think I have to stop taking MarShawn Lloyd until things get better, and things are not good right now, Michael.
That's fair. I mean, after what happened last offseason, for him to already, there's some like Kendre Miller vibes for sure.
Yes. And I just want you guys to know that was a moment of personal strength. I do really like to default to my guests when I'm drafting. I want to get their version of a draft, but I had to draw I can't be saying I'm done with MarShawn Lloyd and then just capitulating immediately for suggestion from Leone. I got to stand for something, Michael. Yeah, that is one of those
situations. What will you fall for?
The thing is, about those situations that you do have to be careful with. Like a good example for me last year is early on, I was taking a lot of Marvin Mims, and I then started to get really spooked as we kind of progressed. And it was like, Devon Vele stuff is happening. And like, what if you get the Troy Franklin, coming on? And so I basically just stopped taking. I was like, I took too many of the Broncos wide receivers. And then, Marvin Mims ended up being an awesome kind of playoff hammer, week 17 hammer. None of my late teams, which were the information edge teams, had him on that, right? Because I was like, I'm out of the Marvin business. I'm playing it from an exposure element. And I think that's the thing I want to be careful. And I don't know the correct answer of how to apply that, but not being so binary about it. Like if you still like a guy, there's an element to it. You don't want them fully back weighted or front weighted to your portfolio.
Yeah, it's really tricky. I think I used the Nico Collins example before, but I had the one year we were so ahead of market on Nico. And I was like, all right, I got to chill. And then his ADP changed so much that like I ended up, so it's a slightly different example. I didn't end up having, like, I was like just slightly overweight because I didn't draft almost any of them once the ADP moved up like 2 rounds. And it's like, maybe I should have just, pounded that click when I had a chance. But yeah, it's definitely challenging managing the exposures and then also the exposures with the other players that you've taken.
So we got 2 picks left, done at tight end. I think we're down to a running back selection, if not 2, and a quarterback potentially, although let me see what's left there. It looks like, do you guys have Dart ranked or did he go? He might have.
He went. We
went.
should have Dart ranked, yeah.
This wouldn't be, so this would, Darnold is falling. You could do something with Darnold and Kenneth Walker potentially if you like the value of Darnold at pick 202.
Yeah, we got otherwise the Carolina stuff too for that game. I'm kind of torn here. I think if Lloyd comes back, I'm going to make you take Lloyd.
Lord, give me strength.
It's round 17, and we're into that offense, I think.
And Darnold goes. Okay, so we how about this?
I think I'm
if
out
you make me draft MarShawn
QB3.
Lloyd, can I talk you into drafting Brashard Smith?
Sure. One for each. Little quid pro quo.
Can I? I'm not going to click.
I wish I could click the button for you. It's going to passively have. You sure you don't have max 3 RBs as a positional limit? And it's going to.
Yeah, you had me worried there for a second. I just want the record to show I did not actually press click. This is on Michael Leone. This is not on me. Will it be reflected in my overall exposures that I have to stare at? Absolutely. But I will be at least able to asterisk those and know that one of them was not me. Man. You know what? This makes me feel good, though, Leone. If you're in on MarShawn Lloyd, if you're not worried about him practicing with the rehab group, that gives me a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not worried, but we're also talking like round 17, right? Like, we need some upside. We've got all Green Bay stuff. We get the Jacobs injury. They throw a bit more, and MarShawn Lloyd's in the mix. That's the season we want to unfold.
Does someone in the chat want to tell TCD that AJ Dillon now plays on the Eagles? I don't know, unless there's some. Oh, maybe he wanted the Dalton Kincaid AJ Dillon correlation for week 17.
For week 17. Oh,
that's our generation's Ertz Algier.
The bye week people got to be happy after we drafted that 4 running backs on the same bye week team.
Yes, look at us rainbow flop this. 7, 14, 8, 5, 10. 10 and 5 at quarterback, 7, 5, 6 at tight end. This is a gorgeously distributed bye week team. All right. I am going to read off this team to you here, Leone. Patrick Mahomes and Jordan Love, Derrick Henry, Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, MarShawn Lloyd, and Brashard Smith, wide receiver Malik Neighbors, Xavier Worthy, Tet McMillan, Matthew Golden, Rashid Shaheed, Hollywood Brown, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Pat Bryant. And then tight ends Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, party like it's 2024, baby, and Dalton Schultz. How do you feel about this team?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go B+. B+? What do you?
Yeah, I think B+ is fair. Do you still regret Derrick Henry over AJ Brown in round 2?
I don't know. I feel like we made it work, but we might have had some more options. Otherwise, it's tough to tell. Like, I don't mind Worthy and Tet at that 3-4 turn. I don't think it's like that reachy. And we did end up, I think, making wide receiver work. We were willing to take the RB values at 5-6, even though it was tough. In hindsight, yeah, I'd probably take AJ Brown, knowing it's a wide receiver heavy room and just giving myself some more flexibility throughout. But I think we did a good job of taking the running back values when they were there, but like making some reasonable sacrifices for wide receiver, like with the Hollywood Brown pick when we had to. And that's sort of the game in the wide receiver heavy rooms, right? Like, you don't want to get bullied into following the room exactly, but if you get too far away from it, they will make you pay for it.
What do you say to the allegations earlier in the chat? I saw multiple comments says there is, we started at the top of the show and we said everybody has a price in best ball. There were people in the chat who said there are under no circumstances should you ever select Kyle Pitts in the year of our Lord 2025. What do you say to those doubters and skeptics who have been burned so badly by this man over the course of 3 straight seasons that they can't even fathom spending an 18th round pick on him?
Gotta suck it up. This is the game, people. This is the game. All right. We could tell ourselves a story where Kirk Cousins never hurts his shoulder last year. Kyle Pitts had that magical month of October. Who knows? You know what really shakes me is that Silva's like in on Kyle Pitts. Like Silva has Kyle Pitts ranked, I think, like just as high as he did last year, and which he was low on Pitts last year, correctly so. Shout out to the man. But it is shaking me a little bit. But really, at this point, I mean, I feel like he's so cheap, and he still does have some of that big play upside that other tight ends don't have. I don't know. How can you argue with almost any starting tight end at that point, let alone one that...
Well, if you want to find people who are willing to argue about it, I just look no further than the chat. There's about 40 people who are willing to argue about it. I will say, is there anything like from like a ranking or tout or any kind of perspective that feels better than being the guy who is out on someone the year when he flops and then watching the market overreact and being like, I'm actually kind of in at these new prices. And I wasn't even a Kyle Pitts guy. I haven't drafted him for 3 straight years, but now Kyle Pitts at pick 154, I'm finally swooping in. Like the smug self-satisfaction you can get from that position has to be incredible.
That was supposed to be me 2 years ago. I tried that with Kyle Pitts. I got smug and I was quite excited. I was like, oh, you people, you were all in on him and now you're afraid to take him in the 6th round. And,
I like this take. WFN goes, oof, I like Pitts, but never with Kincaid. Leone's doing the like, what if 2 wrongs make a right thing with our formerly busted tight ends.
Listen, it's not like, tight ends are notorious for not breaking out until their 3rd or 4th or 5th seasons here, people.
Let's bring our friend Ben Gretch on here.
Gretch. I don't know which way he's going to go on this one.
Yeah, Gretch, where are you at?
I was laughing at the Kincaid Pitts in the background. It's perfect. It's stylistically perfect.
Well, I also love too, like we were drafting and the ETR ranks had Goddard ahead of Kincaid, and Leone just casually was like, yeah, I like Kincaid here. Just kind of just slightly putting his laundry thumb on the scale at tight end to get Kincaid on.
I mean, I think I'm with the chat on this. I like Pitts, but never with Kincaid, or I like Kincaid, but never with Pitts. I think you're asking for it when you take them both.
Listen, at a certain point, these tight ends aren't doing much. Like, I mean, we can squint a little and dream on some upside when we start getting to tight end 18.
Is it dreaming at this point, or is it a coma, Mike?
No comment.
How long are we dreaming? Because it's been 4 years of dreaming.
I mean, this is the classic Leone thing, though, where like I loved Pitts Kincaid teams last year at a way higher prices, and he's going to come in the next year and get them cheaper, and it's going to work out.
I just, I can't say I'm super confident with these guys, but the people are like, we're never going to draft them. It's like, I mean, okay, so you just wait a couple rounds, take, Brenton Strange, like, congrats. Like, come on, live a little.
And now you're starting, I believe your colleague over at ETR, Pat Thorman, was bull posting Brenton Strange over the weekend on Twitter too. Sounds like you guys should head to the Slack streets to battle this one out.
Oh yeah, there will be a DM sent shortly.
Mike, let people know what you guys got going on this week at ETR, other than putting Atlanta Falcons tight end market shares under the microscope.
Yeah, the WNBA product launched. We've got all our best ball rankings up. Those are updating daily. We've got, our estimated ownership working for those. And Peter, you mentioned some of the stuff with rookie ADPs, but Jack Miller wrote an article kind of actually breaking down where rookie ADPs generally tend to move over the course of the best ball mania offseason the last few years. So if you want some actual data on that, it exists, and Jack has broken it down.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to check that out, but I just see it right here. Yeah, what is the best time to draft rookies? I'll post that link in the chat for you guys, and I'm going to bookmark that. Yeah, definitely. It is a little bit of a game of chicken, because some of these guys will like continue to rise, as you get confirmation of good training camps, but then you get the yo-yoing of some of them coming back down. I was hoping we were going to get like cheaper Kyle Williams, and then Stefon Diggs was doing pink cocaine on a boat. And so I don't think that one is going to come down anytime soon.
Yeah. And one of the things Jack looked at is if you segment it between players with like a top 150 ADP and players that are like beyond that, the early, I guess like the good safe rookie picks, it's kind of like 50-50 if they're going to rise or not. But then the kind of later mid-late round picks, those are the ones that generally tend to see a drop off that people are way too bullish on. These are the guys that are like not assured roster spots. We're just, running third, fourth round running backs that we're just assuming are RB2s on teams. Those are the ones that generally are way more likely to drop than rise. And if they do rise, they don't typically rise a whole ton. Like I think like Bucky Irving last year, who Gretch got me on over the summer doing our projections podcast, he was still very attainable once you decided you wanted to be in on him and make that move later in the offseason.
And it also makes sense because when we get more viable late round selections that we feel good about, like who is the first, cohort to get the hook, it's like the rookies we're just completely dreaming or wish casting on. It's like, okay, we're now going to take, Jalen Naylor because we know he's on the field and all these 3 wide receiver sets. And okay, maybe we'll stop taking the 5th round rookie because we've told ourselves that story or whatever. All right, good stuff, Mike. We'll see you back next Monday on Best Ball Breakfast. Hopefully you got the Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid stuff out of your system, and we can get back to drafting good tight ends next week.
See you guys.
All right, see ya. All right, welcoming Ben Gretch, my dude, rocking the ship chasing hat, stealing signals, stealing bananas, all that good stuff. It's been too long since we've done a show. How are you doing this summer?
I'm good. I've been kind of chilling still. The last time I was on Chip Chasing, we talked. I've been coaching my daughter's softball team. That season ends this week, so I still haven't really like transitioned. It's pretty busy. Haven't made my trips down to the Oregon border yet, and so like normally before I come on something like this, it would be great to fire up a couple drafts and get a feel for ADP a little bit right now. But I can't do that out here in Washington. So probably the least informed of your guests so far this year. But I'm ready to mix it up. I always know you're the best at keeping us on structure and all that stuff. So I'll give you my player takes as we go.
Yeah, I I've been bouncing around obviously with Pat in the LegUp guys. We do LegUp ranks, Leone, ETR ranks. I will say I want to give you your choice because I was either going to do just draft off ADP. That's what I did for my my first draft. There have been a lot of people wanting us to draft off of the Siegel ranks as well, but I want to get the Ben Gretch draft, not necessarily the Sean draft, but I was going to throw that option because people were asking for it.
Yeah, fire that up. That's fine. That's great.
Okay. I will get those in. It doesn't mean we have to take Trevion Henderson at 17, though. I just want to.
the Siegel ranks will be fun to navigate for sure. There's probably plenty of overlap there. Obviously, been doing the Stealing Bananas pod still. We started our first main events earlier than ever. Did a live draft on Saturday night that we did a pod for. I don't know if it's up yet. We're also doing a slow right now that's in like the 6th round. Figured we'd fire a couple up, then let a little time linger, but get some early exposure. So those have been fun.
Yeah, that's because I mean when we used to do our mini-sodes it was always kickoff on July 4th, and this was the first year they dropped them way early.
Right.
What was the experience like for this early in the year? Were you able to get some extreme values?
Well, I mean, probably unsurprisingly, of the 18 non-kicker and defenses we took, I believe 10 were rookies. And so we did the I mean, because it's not best ball, right? It's managed, and you're going to be cutting a lot of these guys and stuff. It was the live draft we did. I just pulled up. It was a Neighbors Brian Thomas from the 111. We got a JSN value. He's going at like 301 in this. He went all the way at 311. Took Jaden Daniels in the 4th. got Hawkinson as our tight end in the 6th. So none of those guys were rookies, but we started to really hammer rookie running backs in the later rounds and took both Terrence Ferguson and Harold Fannin late. So we wound up with a really rookie heavy build throughout, but obviously in managed, it's a little bit different. Some of those guys aren't going to pan out. We're going to be able to release them. That's what you do in managed, right? So
yeah,
that was kind of the play as far as trying to find some values in some of those things, was getting exposure to, we did take Travion in this draft, but we got Scattaboo and Tootin and Jarquez Hunter, Dylan Sampson, Brashard Smith, Taj Brooks really late, Jalen Noel, who I know you guys were just talking about in the last one, several rookies in that build. So we'll see how the summer goes for those players.
Are you what's your underdog exposure? Have you done a road trip yet, or are you still
I have not. No.
Yeah,
I haven't, because of the softball stuff. Like I said, it's about to end. I've roped myself. So I got a funny story for you on the softball stuff. I've roped myself into the girls that they had their first matchup with the other team in their same little league. There's enough girls for 2 teams. It's kind of like their rival team. They got beat pretty good. And so their second matchup was last week. And I told them, if they, I'd seen this thing on the internet where some coaches let the kids kind of like pie him in the face at the end of the year. I said, all right, if you guys beat this team, you can pie me in the face. And the girls were like, wait, who would get to do that? And I was like, well, I don't know. We'll figure that out. And they're like, I think we should all get to do that. And I was like, no, see, that would be 12 pies. What I have offered here is 1 pie. But when you're coaching a team full of, 13, 14-year-old girls, what winds up happening is, well, let's just cut to the chase. I'm going to get pied 12 times in the face this Friday.
Oh boy. You better get some photos of that.
It's going to be pretty good, I think. They won 14-0. They came out and played their best. I basically did what I do with my kids. I was like, we'll see how it goes. And they went out and played their best game of the year. It was really cool. And so they all get to have a chance to pie me in the face this weekend.
That's incredible.
Or this week.
Yeah, it's like the pie in the face, or the dunk tank is always a good revenge one for kids as well there, but that sounds like a blast. I think I mentioned this story. I had April, we were at like a park the other day, and someone had left a wiffle ball bat and a thing. And she had her first connection with me, just giving her, pitches from like 2.5 feet out. And I felt like so much sense of overwhelming pride watching my 2.5-year-old connect on a wiffle bat. I was like, all right, we got to get the T-ball signed up. Let's get this going.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's super fun to see the growth. I mean, for my own daughter when I coach her and everything, but it's been fun to coach as well. And I've gotten to know all the other girls and see them grow as well. It's a fun, I didn't know that I would care that much about coaching, I guess. I haven't had boys, and my girls weren't super into sports, and I didn't think I was really missing a whole lot, but it's, everyone always says it's rewarding and all that. And I've found it to be super rewarding. Jameer Gibbs.
All right.
108.
Yeah, we're on the clock. Jameer Gibbs at 8. Can I sign you up for that?
Yes, absolutely. You can. I think he's probably the best running back in the NFL, so I'll take him at 8.
I think didn't I just hear you talking about Gibbs on stealing bananas? I want to say I did, but it's just like
probably, yeah. We did an episode recently where we focused a little bit on the early round running backs. We were talking a lot about Barkley, a little bit about Bijan, a little bit about Gibbs. But yeah, I think as far as anchor running backs go and what you can do in the first round, I mean, Gibbs is the talent is there. I think even in the first round, there's that sort of asymmetrical thing where if he doesn't hit this ADP in production, it's because he's not missing by much. But we know that when Montgomery misses, if you go look at his splits, go use the RotoViz game splits app, he goes up to like a 27 point per game player or something like that over the couple of years. He is tremendous when, he gets all of the work, which we saw late last year. Part of the reason I don't think people realize how great he was last year is because that week 18 game where both teams were trying, where the division was on the line and a home playoff game was on the line. And I believe the 1 seed was on the line, right? The Lions went out and beat the Vikings, and Gibbs scored 4 touchdowns, but it was week 18. And so a lot of the research that people do, they cut off week 18. That game still matters to me when I'm looking at what he did last year, because the team was trying, and it was his best game of the year. He was absolutely tremendous in that one. I think he had a really good postseason game in their 1 playoff loss. So the 2 games that aren't coming into people's filters, I think were two of his best games of the year. I mean, he's a superstar. He's so good.
Yep. There's a lot of talk today. I don't know if you saw it, but Ragnow, the center for the Lions, retired. So some people are a little spooked on that.
But they took a center in the second round of this draft. I mean, he's going to be a rookie. It's tough.
Yeah.
But they do already have what do you call that? A plan. What's the word? Blank plan?
Succession
Plan. Yeah. Succession, the movie, right?
So it looks like Achan, top of the ranks by ADP. We got Henry, AJ Brown, Achan, JT. What stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, can we start running back in this economy?
We can.
All right, let's do Achan.
Yeah,
I like that.
Let's do Achan. You have to. It's complete. Like I've had tons of teams I've started RB and really like them. The biggest difficulty is if like there's an elite QB you end up liking, and then you really get behind the 8-ball at wide receiver. But I did a draft this morning with like a Bijan JT start and really liked how it turned out. You just kind of have to do, later tight end, later quarterback, I think, to really love those teams.
I like that. I think there's a little bit of a break there, a little bit of a tier break there at receiver as you start to get into the second round. After, Nico and Brian Thomas are off the board. I mean, I don't mind Ladd. They don't obviously like AJ Brown a ton and would be happy to take him. When you start to see like T Higgins going off there, I'm not necessarily out on T Higgins, but at that price, I do think you're talking about a different type of bet than what you're getting in the early second round at receiver. Achan is a fun bet there. Siegel, little preview to some of our main event stuff that we were talking about on our last episode of Stealing Bananas. He was talking about Achan as probably somebody he's come around on thinking that should probably be in the middle of the first round based on his profile through 2 years. So, and I kind of get it. I mean, his argument is you look at the efficiency from his rookie year and how good the Miami offense was for running back production in his rookie year. And then everything kind of fell apart last year. But, despite Achan's efficiency really falling off, all that stuff, basically like the high value touch game for him was incredible. They threw all those like quick screens to him. He caught a ton of passes, got a lot of work in close, got a lot of touchdowns off of that, even in a year where he wasn't very efficient. But as far as, chasing legendary upside at running back, if you can combine sort of the usage element from year 2 with some of the efficiency and skill element that we saw in year 1, you can totally see a ceiling that would justify, that type of pricing. Yeah.
So we're on the clock here. ADP, you got Chase Kyron by rank. You got the Xavier Worthy, Tet, Evans also in the mix at wide receiver. What do you like?
I think probably Worthy for me at this point.
Let's do it.
Again, Seagulls. I laughed because at our second pick, Worthy was showing up as when you clicked on Seagulls ranks, he was showing up as one of the top picks. I mean, I don't think I'm nearly as high as Siegel on Worthy, but you start running back, you want to get into the receiver game here, right? And
yes,
I do think Worthy's a little bit misunderstood for me in that a lot of people are saying, well, all of his production came after the Super Bowl was decided. He was their whole offense in the AFC Championship win. He had a good postseason. After he first caught 5 passes in about week 14, I think it was, 15, he played 8 games. I think 4 of them were in the playoffs or 3 of them were in the playoffs or whatever. And in all 8 games, he caught 5+. So after he got to that mark for the first time, which was late in the year, he was a huge part of their offense down the stretch. A lot of people say a lot of that work was underneath. He didn't do as much downfield. We know he had a lot of missed opportunities downfield, but everything in the short area, those scheme touches, that's what you want. Like that builds out a profile that also includes air yards. If it basically for me is like, okay, well, he has all the gimme touches if he needs those, or it gives him a floor of production. But if and when some of the deep stuff does hit, then you have the ceiling as well. You have that potential full profile that was like the difference between when Debo was just sort of a manufactured touch guy and then had a ceiling season was when his ADOT came up and he started hitting on some air yards throws downfield. Worthy's going to get those chances. And what we saw in the Super Bowl is they can hit. It's not impossible to hit. It's not like the Eagles weren't playing defense. The one thing the Eagles didn't want to give up at that point was deep touchdowns. Like that was the only thing that the Chiefs could have possibly done to get back into that game was hit on some long plays, and they still got over the top on him. So I don't think you can completely discount that stuff. I think it's a good evidence that Worthy still has room to grow. He just turned 22 like a month and a half ago. Played the whole season at 21. There's an easy year 2 thesis for him, in my opinion.
And also a little bit of thematic through line with Achan and Worthy, where it's like the offenses can get much better than they were last year, where it's like you buy into the talent of HN and Worthy, and it's like, yeah, the Dolphins offense wasn't near as efficient as they were 2 years ago. Obviously, we haven't seen Mahomes kind of get back to his golden era. So yeah, I can certainly buy that. All right, let's see here. Breece Hall, Jane Daniels, Hunter, Devontae Smith, Jamison Williams.
I mean, I love Daniels, but I feel like is the pick probably needs to be receiver.
I think it probably should be a wide receiver.
I'm totally comfortable with Hunter. I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know where you're at on him now, but I know
I
you were
love
earlier on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Earlier on,
No,
I knew you were.
Maybe I should say I still I'm happily selecting him in this range. I do take Tet and Xavier Worthy and even Mike Evans and obviously Devontae Adams over him. It feels like a fair price versus before it was obviously this windmill slam dunk at those old prices. But man, it's hard not to get excited about him in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when we talk about best ball, he's going to have some explosive plays, explosive opportunities. Brian Thomas is really good in his own right, but Hunter was a better receiving prospect probably. And I mean, I'm not saying that he should be going where Thomas is going because Thomas's rookie year was incredible, but they went out and traded a ton to move up and draft Travis Hunter. If you compare their ADPs directly, it is kind of interesting. It's like two really young players. Are we that confident that Brian Thomas is like the number one in the offense going forward? And like he's the Jamar Chase and Hunter's the T. Higgins? Or 2 years from now, is that flip? Do we think Travis Hunter's the Jamar Chase and Brian Thomas is the T. Higgins? I mean, I think that's pretty possible, right? That's what Brian Thomas was to Malik Neighbors at LSU when he played with a really elite wide receiver. He was sort of the deep threat, explosive play, and he had 17 touchdowns and, made a bunch of high efficiency plays, but didn't earn a ton of targets alongside a hyper, target earning a legit alpha number one, Malik Neighbors in college. Anyway, I do love Thomas and I still want to take him there. And I mentioned we took him in a main event already, but me and Siegel, but Hunter in the fourth relative to Thomas at pick 13 overall, I do think is an interesting thought experiment.
Yeah, and it's like I think some people always take it as like a slight of like, oh, you're discrediting Brian Thomas Jr. But it's like, how many elite wide receiver duos have we seen in the NFL in the past few years not only be able to coexist but perform at really high levels? We've had multiple years of drafting Hill and Waddle in the first 2 rounds, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Like both these guys can be 1-2 turn picks next year. Like that wouldn't be a crazy outcome.
No, I think the Liam Cohen offense, I think you're going to see plenty of passing. I don't think the Jags are going to be so good that they're never going to be like trailing or anything. Like I think it's going to be a fun team for fantasy production. It was a really good offense with the Bucs that Cohen ran for running back production. And I think it's going to be a good offense for running back production. Pretty in on the Jags overall.
Yeah. All right, we're about to pick in round 4. We start Gibbs, Achane, come back with Worthy and Travis Hunter. Looking at the board by ADP, Pickens comes off. So you're looking at like Ridley, Addison. Addison, Sean obviously likes Trevion Henderson and Judy. What do you like here?
I like any of those 3 picks. Pickens would have been my pick.
Yeah.
Addison, Judy, and Trevion are all guys that I think Siegel's right to be above the market on.
Addison's fun because we get that little week 17 opposite Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay. Yep, let's do it.
Let's get that. So we go Gibbs, Achane, Worthy, Hunter, Addison. Obviously, some of that like slight lingering suspension risk with Addison, but at this point, it seems like it's either not happening or it's only going to be a game or 2. So it doesn't seem like much of a knock.
Yeah, Siegel's been really high on him for quite a while for the longer view stuff. I know we've talked about it on Ship Chasing some, dating to last year where, this guy won the Blitnikoff in Pittsburgh and got Kenny Pickett drafted in the first round, then went to USC and had a great year, and then came into the pros and has scored, I think, 9 or 10 touchdowns both seasons. And starting at age 21, has been a very productive at a young age type player. There's like a lot of long view stuff that suggests that Jordan Addison's just a really, really good player and better than people realize. It's tough because he plays with Justin Jefferson. My view on it is the Vikings have the best 3-player like receiving core with Hawkinson also mixed in it because Hawkinson's a really high end tight end. I think you're talking about, I mean, Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson is incredible. I think JJ McCarthy's set up really well. I mean, another guy that I think, like, just broadly, I think you have to be pretty excited about the Vikings offense. I think they basically made Sam Darnold last year, the talent around him, and Kevin O'Connell in the offense. And I think that bodes well for McCarthy's ability to play well in his first year as a starter. So, another fun offense to get pieces of.
Yeah, and I like, I'm always thinking too, like, okay, we're not getting elite quarterback. McCarthy, really nice price. Trevor Lawrence, nice price. 135, 145 for those quarterbacks. So we can put, one, if not two of those guys in our back pocket as stacking option. Obviously, Mahomes with Worthy is in play, but yeah, I always like stacking those guys up that give you lots of backdoor outs there with the quarterback. ADP here is we're about to pick at 6'5", Burrow sliding, but has very little utility for us. Chuba is kind of the big faller here. 9 picks past ADP. Kamara, looking at Sean's ranks, Reed really the only wide receiver he likes in this range. Otherwise, dig in the running backs. What do you think?
Well, I like Olave quite a bit more than he does.
Yeah.
I think Olave is still a pretty solid pick. I think it's really silly that he's going in the 6th round. This is a guy who's been a 2+ yards per out run player all first 3 years of his career. And Reed goes. So Reed would have been the other receiver for me, and we're kind of behind at receiver. I think the pick for me is Olave, unless you really want to get the value on Hubbard. But he didn't play a ton of okay, we grab Olave. He didn't run a lot of routes last year, but he once again was over 2 yards per route. That there's a stat that Crane had a few years back on ship chasing. Receivers who start with 2+ yards per route in their first 2 years of their career tend to be superstars. It's a really, really small but elite cohort. The year that he brought that up, I believe, was Debo's 3rd year, way back when Debo really broke out in his 3rd year, because we were talking about Debo, a guy who had some injury shortened years, but the per route stuff was really, really good his first 2 years. Olave, again, only 188 routes last year, but was again at a point where he was going over 2 yards per out run. His ADOT had come down last year, which was something I actually wanted to see. It was really high the first 2 years, but he was starting to get more work in the intermediate range. One of the things Siegel mentioned to me, one of the reasons he's down on him is he looks at a lot of the advanced stuff over at SIS, and Olave's not as good after the catch, hasn't broken a lot of tackles, hasn't done a lot with yak. But his yards per target was still good last year, especially depth adjusted. It was actually higher than his first 2 years when he had the higher ADOTs, but there was just a lot of empty air yards. Last year, he had a better yards per target when the ADOT came down because his catch rate went way up. He was actually a lot more efficient running routes in those middle areas. I know Sean's other big concern is a quarterback play. He was still playing with his 188 routes last year, mostly with Derek Carr. The quarterback play in New Orleans is probably going to be pretty bad. But I'm really confident that Chris Olave is like a long-term good NFL wide receiver. 3 straight years like this is a very positive trend. And I just don't think you should be – and like no target competition. I don't think you should be able to get a guy that is like still young, we think is really good, is the clear number 1 in his offense, like the clear number 1 in my mind. Shaheed was good last year, but explosive play good, not like target stealing from Chris Olave good necessarily. I just think it's kind of silly to get him all the way in the 6th round.
And if you're going to have like a blanket philosophy, like obviously you got to apply nuance and stuff, but just buying these guys that we were content drafting in round 2 at their cheaper prices, the Waddle, the Olaves, like you're going to come out ahead. Obviously we did it with Evans 2 years ago, right? 2nd round pick, all of a sudden, ends up being in the 6th round and just smashes. All right, Judkins, Pearsall come off the board. We're on the clock at 7-8. ADP, you're looking at Pollard, Diggs, Swift, Ayuk. Rank, we got Sean really throwing ADP out here.
Maybe Hawkinson. Is it a weird spot to go tight end?
No, we could do Hawkinson or
because we have Addison.
Yeah, you want to set up that double?
Yeah, and I mean, I think Hawkinson's a pretty good 2nd year off of an ACL rebound candidate.
Yeah.
I didn't really love any of the receivers we were looking at there. Again, I'm not as well versed with ADP right now, so I didn't have any clear like names in my back pocket. He's super high on the rookie running backs, as we saw in the ranks. Could have went there, but I feel like we could probably try to find a little bit better value there. The receivers, this pocket doesn't seem great to me. I don't know. Is there any guys I missed that you love at receiver in this range?
No, I mean, I don't mind kicking the tires on Ayuk. I like Josh Downs. But yeah, nothing that was screaming at me. We maybe could
Downs for sure, but his ADP is a little lower, right? We got a little time, maybe.
Yeah. You definitely have a little bit there. So yeah, to me, it was kind of like Mahomes or Hawkinson. Like, do you want to stack up Worthy there? Maybe grab the tight end and set up that double stack. But I like the Hawkinson angle.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. There's definitely some tight end value. I mean, I was looking around at ADP at least a little bit, and there's some guys I like in the later rounds. We didn't necessarily have to go tight end there, but with Addison, I think you can set up McCarthy later. It seems like a pretty. And you mentioned we already have with Gibbs, right? They play week 17, so we already have a little thing going on there.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, the other ones we can just keep in our back pocket. Miami plays Tampa Bay. Obviously, the Chiefs play Denver. Travis Hunter plays the Colts. And then Olave plays Tennessee. And we do see right after us, Ayuk, someone in the chat mentioning too that Ayuk could qualify for that screener of guys we were drafting in round 2 or 3. I think he's one you need to apply a lot of nuance just in that some of the personnel's changed, obviously the injury stuff, but I still think as a heuristic, keeping close tabs on him makes sense.
Yeah, the tricky thing with him is just the health. I'm trying to figure out how much he's even going to play, but I do think when he gets back, he should pretty clearly be. I'm not really in on Pearsall. I don't think people are paying enough attention to. He had some good games last year, but he ran a lot of routes over like a.
Well, it was like 1.5 good games.
Right. He ran a lot of routes and did nothing.
Early. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of question marks there as well. Downs does go. I kind of like Pittman in these prices as well. I mean, it's kind of the same thesis. I do like Downs more than Pittman, but I'm not completely out on Michael Pittman Jr. necessarily. And you just mentioned we have the little correlation. They're both to me really nice prices at this range.
One, not that it's something we have to figure out now, but do you have a dog in the Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones race or a lean on that? I'm just thinking of potential stacking outs too.
I think they're both going to play. I think Daniel Jones is going to play more. I don't think Daniel Jones is good. I think Anthony Richardson essentially showed himself to not be an accurate enough passer. Like it's a disqualifying trait for him. I mean, I saw. Yep. I wish I knew who it was, but I saw on Twitter the other day a really good table that tried to break down like the correct read and the accuracy rate. Correct read against zone coverages and like cover 2 zones, like getting the throw to the right spots. I think it was a charted metric versus the accuracy rate. And one of the interesting elements of that was Anthony Richardson actually had a really high rate of correct reads, but his accuracy rate he's just not an accurate quarterback. He can't throw the ball. It's really bad. I mean, it can't be overstated. Last year of all qualifying passers, there were only 2 passers who had a completion percentage under 60%. Spencer Rattler was at 57%. Richardson was all the way down 47%, a full 10 percentage points lower than that. A lot of that's because he had a really high ADOT. It is harder to complete the bombs. But, I mean, he had so many open players that he just could not hit. I think a lot of the stuff that happened with the weird him tapping out stuff was like, I thought the tapping out thing was overblown because they had other issues with Anthony Richardson, essentially. It was kind of a cover for like, we don't think we can win with this guy. We got to find a different reason to get mad at him and put him on the bench. The Daniel Jones thing, I mean, I don't think he's necessarily great, but I do think he'll wind up playing more. I think they can both play themselves out of the job, frankly, but I think Richardson probably more quickly plays himself out of the job. Jones probably is there a better chance to actually win games within a system and with, Jonathan Taylor and all that stuff. And to that point, if Jones is, I don't think you're taking Pittman here hoping that Richardson's the QB because I don't think that's probably good for the receivers. But if Jones is playing QB, I think you could probably get value out of Downs and Pittman in this range.
For sure. And I think anyone expressing a ton of confidence on, who's going to be the week 17 quarterback between those two is probably full of shit in that I think we're going to see more ping ponging between them than we've really ever seen from a quarterback. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they alternate who's starting like 3 or 4 different times. And then you're just hoping to essentially get lucky that your guy is playing in the playoff weeks.
Right.
But it is an interesting thing for like when you're thinking of stacking stuff because Daniel Jones is free in these drafts. Like you can get him in the 18th round. Like if you have 2 quarterbacks and then you're like, yeah, I have Pittman, I have Downs, like you can tack on Daniel Jones. Anthony Richardson still gets drafted obviously in every single one of them. So it's a little bit more of a decision point. And because of that, I've had more Jones teams than I have A-Rich teams.
I was looking at ADP. It seems like ADP kind of runs out. I mean, quarterback gets a little bit tight late, right? Like after like round 14. I don't know. I mean, you tell me when we need to take a quarterback because you were always the best at that on chip chasing. I always just ignore quarterback. But I really like this pocket of running back. I would probably be Jordan Mason. Oh, Tootin is available too. Oh, but he's got a lower ADP.
Yeah.
Jordan Mason is really interesting to me after talking with Siegel. Oh, and we actually have the Minnesota stuff.
We have the Minnesota stuff. Just like rip it in on Minnesota here. I say we do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
The only other correlation.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the only other correlation thing would be Jonnu, but it's like we already have Hawkinson. We can probably wait at tight end for tight end too.
Yeah, and I'm happy to wait there. They're also talking trade with him. I'm
True.
a little bit spooked by that. So the Mason stuff, he was a restricted free agent. The Niners gave him a second round tender, but they were never going to be. His contract was expired. They're never going to be able to afford him in an offseason where they're letting a whole bunch of other guys go and needing to shed cap. They traded away Debo to basically shed cap, and they let several other free agents go. So everyone kind of knew Mason wasn't going to be with the Niners. So they gave him this, but they still gave him a second round tender because they wanted to be able to control basically the negotiation and the situation. Vikings come in, they do trade him for him. I think people see the capital that went back, which was like a 7th round pick swap and a 6th or something. It was very late, but the Niners basically were just like, all we wanted to get out of this was a 6th round pick. We wanted to try to get anything we could out of it. They had no leverage, is my point. The Vikings didn't have to give up a lot, but they did still to lock him in, and then they immediately gave him 2 years, $12 million. And I mean, I think if you think about that, Aaron Jones last year especially wasn't very good between the tackles, and Jordan Mason has been over 5 yards per carry, limited sample the first 2 years, but all 3 years of his career, he's a good runner in this system, in this scheme. And I think O'Connell likes to grab guys that have been in Shanny McVay type systems. He brought in Darnold after the 1 year backing up in San Francisco and felt like he was a system guy. Obviously, the Seahawks thought Darnold was a system, can play in this system. And after they brought in Clint Kubiak, I think he did the same thing with bringing Jordan Mason. This is a good runner in this system, paid him money. He's going to get a lot more work than I think people realize. He's not just a handcuff. Like, I think he's going to run between the tackles more than Aaron Jones probably in this offense.
Okay, let's think about a dynamic here. We're about to pick at 113. Holy Baker Mayfield slide. This is crazy. One thing to think about, and Nolan pointed this out, the Justin Jefferson drafter doesn't have a QB. I think if we want to get both Lawrence and JJ McCarthy, we probably should take JJ McCarthy now. I know it's like technically a little early, but I don't know if the Jefferson drafter is going to let him pass twice. And this kind of falls in that area where it's like,
sure,
you kind of have to pull up the quarterback.
The only other thing is if you, I'm down that, or if you want to take Baker as a faller with the Miami thing and then backstack him. But I'm down with just taking McCarthy now.
Yeah,
let's do that.
I think, Baker is a great value. He is, I guess, McMillan and Auten. Yeah, we could have done it. Opposite Miami. Yeah, maybe we should have done that. Maybe I wish I had a little more time there.
Yeah, it's all good though.
Yeah,
I don't love the McMillan play. The 3 receivers are gone. It would have been Auten that I was thinking in the back of my head, or even like
Rashad White, maybe.
Yeah, Rashad White, Sean Tucker. I feel like Sean Tucker, I was looking through ADP. Sean Tucker has like no ADP. He was really good last year. And if either of the 2 backs ahead of him get hurt, he's probably playing in a 2-back system in some kind.
Yeah.
I feel like he should be getting drafted, but he's not.
And I just feel like once we did the Addison, Hawk, and Mason, I feel like this team just really needs McCarthy. Because if you lose McCarthy, not only are you losing that stack element, but you're also losing like a good chunk of your stackable pieces too, where it's like, then you're having to build out more backdoor. But I do, because we had Achane too, opposite Baker, I do think we could have made that work and probably should have done that. So that was a good shout. I wish we had a little more time there.
I mean, again, I honest to God, like I'm terrible at figuring out quarterback. I never know what that stuff. Like, we have a huge bet on the Vikings offense, but part of my whole thesis with the Vikings is on KOC and the system and everything. And so maybe you could argue that even if McCarthy was hurt, that it could still succeed. And thus, like, we didn't require the McCarthy pick necessarily in this, but that JJ drafter did take Herbert at that turn. He did go QB at that turn.
Yes. With Trey Harris. Yep.
Yeah.
And this is the other, because like the value part, and this is something I've been thinking through a lot. And yeah, it feels a little gross to reach for the QB, but the value part of the draft board here are the quarterbacks. And to get multiple of them, you often have to reach, because like you're not going to get both of your quarterback selections at ADP values a good chunk of the time. And so now we can get Trevor Lawrence here lock up
Okay.
those two guys. It also opens up Strange if we want to do that later, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I think the quarterback stuff, like I said, when I'm looking at ADP, there's not a lot of really late like the Daniel Jones thing to me is probably thin for best ball, like because you really don't know how much he's going to play.
Yeah.
I do like the Jacksonville setup, man. I was talking about that obviously earlier with Hunter there and Brian Thomas, and I don't know if I'm really into Strange because Strange's profile is not actually that great. I would have needed Hunter to have not landed there. I got it earlier in the offseason when everyone else was getting cleared out and all they brought in was De'Ami Brown, and it's like he could be the second target on this team, but there's two legit wide receivers on this team now, and you're the third guy. Like I want a little more upside than that, I think, in the later on tight ends, but in a stack situation, we could certainly, throw them on. But yeah, just the Lawrence Hunter thing is great.
It is. Yeah. So here's the team so far through 11 rounds. We got the 2-3-5-1. We got JJ McCarthy and Lawrence at quarterback. We got Gibbs, Etienne, and Mason at running back. We got Worthy, Hunter, Addison, Olave, Pittman at wide receiver, Hawkinson at tight end. I think we're in really good shape positionally. Those 3 running backs, great. 5 wide receiver room before pick 90. Hawkinson gives us some upside at tight end. I think this is breaking nicely.
Both QBs are stacked with a bring back, a top 10 round type bring back, right? Pittman is the bring back on the Jacksonville. Gibbs is our first round pick, is a bring back on our big Minnesota stack. Like structurally, it's a little too clean almost.
Too clean. All right, let's messy it up here. This feels like probably like a running back pick just based on
I didn't know Siegel had Blue this high. I've been talking Siegel into Blue a little bit. He's the dude that
let's do it.
I'm like way too obsessed with because of the way that they played Rico Dowdle last year, how bad Javonte Williams was last year. Javonte Williams probably just can't play anymore. They paid him some money, yes. They brought in Miles Sanders, who also probably just can't play anymore. Blue's got some intriguing stuff, but wasn't ever a full workload guy. He was behind Bijan early in his career. Then he was behind Jonathan Brooks. Last year, he should have had more like rushing work than he actually did. But the other thing with the Cowboys is they seem to really believe their draft evaluations. One of the interesting things that they've done the last couple of years is traded for guys multiple years after they've been busts because they seem to have had a high price on them, like coming out. Like Jonathan Mingo, they gave a 4th round pick for because the Panthers took him in the 2nd round, even though Mingo had been horrible. There's no reason that Jonathan Mingo should have been traded for a 4th round pick after his first 2 years or a year and a half or whatever. They gave a 4th round for Trey Lance after Lance was a total bust. So, I mean, I really think there's like a level of hubris in the Cowboys organization that doesn't exist anywhere else. So the fact that they took Blue in the 5th round, I think is very meaningful. That Maffa guy people are talking about, that guy's profile is bad. Like you look at his evasion rate and all that stuff. He's just a really big dude. He's got some decent yards after contact numbers, but he's not like an actual NFL back, I don't think. Blue is a really good receiving back, had a really good receiving profile, probably not enough of a workhorse to take everything that could be available to him. But again, the fact that this is a Cowboys team that said, well, we're going to make a career special teamser in Rico Dowdle, who's basically had no touches through 3 or 4 years and is like 26 years old. We're going to make him into a 200 touch guy. And they did that. And they stuck to that all last season, didn't change their minds, just continued doing it. And it's a new coaching staff, but it's basically, I mean, they just promoted Brian Schottenheimer. Like it's basically the whole same system that they've always had. They're going to stubbornly play the dude that they drafted in the 5th round. I mean, he's a 5th round pick. It's not a high capital thing, but the fact that they went and chose this guy means something to me. I'm a little concerned the profile is not good enough to handle enough touches, but I think he's going to play a lot. I think he's going to have to play a lot because he's going to be so much, apparently so much more explosive than Javonte and Miles all through camp, and then especially once the games start. I mean, this guy's going to have some big plays, and I think he's a fun dude in the 12th round.
I like it. I mean, we got him past ADP. We got him at pick 137. I think he's the exact type of like high variance running back to pair with a double RB start. Like we know Gibbs and HN are going to hold it down. Let's like really swing for the fences. We missed out on like the Toot and Scatabo tier. So let's go ahead and grab, Jaydon Blue there. We're back on the clock here. Brenton Strange is a guy we could think about if we want to get a double stack there. Sean's ranks really start to deviate here. Tyler Algier is actually the one in that range. Palmer, Noel would be the wide receivers. What do you think?
Probably a running. I I don't know. What are you thinking? Yeah, let's do Algier's a fine pick for me.
Yeah, I just was getting us something to make sure we didn't auto timeout anything too crazy.
I mean, I wouldn't have been Palmer. I didn't necessarily like the. Oh, we only have one tight end. I see why you were saying strange. For some reason, I was thinking we have two. But we have the two QBs.
The thing is, I never like panic at tight end just because it just goes so deep and there's lots of options. So I don't mind. We're probably done at running back. Like we don't have to be, but like 5 running backs here, we're in really good shape with Gibbs, Achane, Mason, Blue, and Algier.
Right. Yeah, which is a little bit tough because probably my favorite. I mean, there's a lot of running back value in the after 180. I would be down to just be taking a bunch of running backs super late. It's mostly the rookies, but I think they're underpriced. Sean had Dylan Sampson way higher than I would have necessarily had him, but he is one of the guys that I just think a lot of those dudes are going far too late for what they're probably going to do right away. Yep. Strange does go as well. If you want to get that second tight end, I mean, the guy that I really like in this range is actually Pat Freiermuth because, again, you get into this thing where he's going to pretty clearly be their second tight end. They gave him an extension last offseason. I don't know why he goes this late. He's a pretty good but not great tight end, but a clear starter they gave a bunch of new money to. And now with Pickens gone, if Aaron Rodgers is there, you're playing touchdown rate a little bit. There's going to be pass volume concerns. But I do think Freiermuth could run a high touchdown rate. Rodgers, even when he wasn't good last year, ran a 4.8% touchdown rate. He's still going to throw touchdowns. That's the one thing that Rodgers has always kind of done. That's, to me, the best tight end in this range, other than, the really late, I like the rookies, Ferguson and Fannin a little bit. But in this range, Freiermuth is just underpriced to me.
Yeah, the only other consideration would be if you feel like there's a wide receiver here to help out a 5 wide receiver room.
I could definitely go Wan'Dale. It's up to you. Either way.
I think we should probably get a wide receiver here.
Let's do it.
I think it gets pretty bleak. Whereas the tight end stuff, and yes, we missed out on Strange. I will say I like the Freiermuth call as well. I just am getting a little more squeamish about our wide receiver room versus the tight end situation.
Yeah, no, I think Wan'Dale was actually a good. He's underpriced again. He didn't have a great year. He wasn't super efficient. It is half PPR, and he's probably the guy in the league that gets hurt the most by it not being, a full PPR situation because he had 10 catch, 41-yard games, that are just sort of absurd. But
yeah, and it's it's another one of we know who Wan'Dale is, but if we are getting excited about what Dart could do for Neighbors, it's what could Dart do for Wan'Dale? What could Dart do for Theo Johnson?
His ability to earn volume is not in question. That was the whole thing with his profile. If you go back to his college years, his targets per out run in college were absolutely obscene. A lot of that is manufactured touches and stuff, but he can run routes in the short area of the field and get open like nobody's business. And he did it again last year. Yeah, I know it's really low ADOT stuff and there's not a lot of efficiency on it and there's not a lot of yardage. But the fact that he was able to earn as much volume as he did alongside a season where Neighbors was getting whatever he had, 170 targets, there's not a lot else there. They didn't add anybody. People are talking themselves into Theo Johnson and Darius Slayton again this year. Wan'Dale Robinson's going to have another 140 targets or something. It's a lot of targets for a 14th round pick.
Yep. I think he's a nice selection in that range. And look at this. We get Pat Freiermuth coming back. So now we can get both beautiful. Pat
Freiermuth says here, 10th in NFL in targets and top 13 points once. Not really sure it's ever going to be there for him. I like that point. I also think that's fully priced in the 4th round. You're talking about a guy that was 10th in the NFL in targets last year, is healthy and was, is still in the same offense, no more competition, is still in his prime, is still young. I understand, he top 13 points once, but what if you flip this? What if, he's 10th in the NFL in targets, he has a real target earning skill. What if he actually has some efficiency? This guy's actually pretty good with the ball in his hands when he does it. It's usually small sample stuff. What if he actually breaks a few plays, has a couple long TDs? That's really all it takes.
Well, it's kind of like a cheaper version of the Pittman click, right? Where it's you're not getting a full blown breakout with Michael Pittman. You're buying the targets. You're buying that role on the field. And I was kind of having this talk with Leone too, where it's all of these guys have a value that they serve on the team, and especially a team where we took some really high variance swings at the top, Worthy, Hunter, guys we're really excited about, but could they have more volatile week-to-week swings? Like, sure. So I think getting guys like Pittman and Wan'Dale to bookend them isn't bad. We have 3 more picks here, Gretch. We're at a 2-5-6-2. So I think there's a lot of different ways we could go here. If we're looking for a Colts, bring back to Jacksonville stuff, like A.D. Mitchell could potentially be.
There's one
play.
receiver there that I really like on that list. And we kind of need a receiver, right?
Yes. And we're at the point in the draft where like the ADPs don't matter anymore. So let it rip. Who do you like?
It would be Jalen Coker. I mean, that guy was a really good rookie. They added Tet, and I think Tet is good for Jalen Coker. I don't think Xavier Legette's probably the guy. Coker. So Siegel did the research of several years ago where he looked at like rookie breakouts, second-year breakouts, third year, fourth year, fifth year at wide receiver and profiled them all. And one of his biggest takeaways was the guys that break out later are the guys who don't have draft capital, because draft capital earns you early playing time is one of the biggest things it earns. If you're going to see a fourth or fifth year breakout, it's going to be a dude that was a later round pick and had to earn his way onto the field multiple times early in his career. There's a big reason I like Jacoby Myers a couple of years ago, because he earned his way on the field early in his career, and then he did it again the next year. They didn't play him the next year, and about midseason, he earned his way on the field again the next year, and then had a good second half of the year, and I think his third season. And then it was like, dude, this guy's good. Like he continues to earn his way on the field. Coker was a UDFA that took a long time to earn his way on the field last year, but when he did, he played. Then he got hurt, and then Adam Thielen started. So Thielen had been out, and Coker had been playing slot and playing well. Thielen comes back when Coker's hurt and takes over the slot role and does it really well. And so then it was like, well, Coker's not going to have a spot when he comes back late in the year. But what's his face? Their head coach, Dave Canales, moved Coker outside after he came back and played him outside. He was like, this is a breakout. This is a UDFA that we got to get on the field. So he earned his way into multiple different roles, and that versatility. He's got size, speed. He had a really good small school production profile. I mean, he's actually like a really good player, probably, that Canales already showed us last year. He likes enough to move him around and find a spot for him. I think he's a really good year 2 guy.
I like it. All right, 2-5-7-2. We're on the clock. A lot of the quarterbacks got wiped, although Tyler Shuck is still here if we wanted to do a stack with Olave as our QB3.
Can we just do 2 QBs, or do we want to do 3?
No, we can. No, we can do 2 with this one for sure.
Or Daniel Jones would be the pick for me over. I can't do Shuck, man. That guy's not going to be good.
Let's do. I completely forgot we had Michael Pittman, and we had already talked about this. Let's do Daniel.
Let's throw Daniel Jones in the 17th. That's fine. He's got the mobility, and I do think he plays enough more in this offense, and is probably the one playing late in the year, because I think the Colts are good enough that they can be not eliminated. And so you're going to be in a situation where they're going to be trying to win late in the year. And I just think, I don't think Daniel Jones is amazing, but I think he's going to be their better chance to win. And I think Steichen's going to see it that way.
Yeah. And it's also like, what's our thing? Like, what do you win when you win? With Shuck, you're getting, a guy who maybe should be valued in the Stafford tier, as far as like a okay pocket passer. Whereas like Daniel Jones, if it hits, like he's probably like a 10th round value with his rushing and in that crew there.
For sure.
What do you think positionally? So we're at 3-5-7-2. We're done at quarterback. We're done probably at running back. I think you could make the case for an 8th wide receiver, a 3rd tight end, or like you said, like if there's a running back you really liked, I think you could let it rip at running back too.
Yeah, I don't have a strong take positionally. I think I agree with you that it's fine at running back, but I do actually really like what we have at receiver with the 7 receivers, because I feel like when we got back on track round 3 through round 6, we got 4 really good target earners. And then with Pittman and Wan'Dale as the 5 and 6, I feel like we have a lot of stability in less like, like rookie upside and just more stability at that wide receiver room. I guess I'm maybe leaning. I think the best player available is probably a running back.
Yeah.
But I would probably think the 8th receiver most of the time, but I'm kind of talking myself off of that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at the 3rd tight end as being interesting. Okay. Like Chig's opposite, Olave week 17, Jatavian Sanderson. We have Coker, so you could kind of do a stack there. I'm also open to, if you like one of these rookie running backs, Sampson, Neal, Taj, ETN.
I think those are all really good picks. Those are the guys that I would say are probably the best picks in a vacuum. Sampson is opposite Freiermuth.
Oh,
Siegel's got him super high. Let's just throw him on there.
Let's do it. Yeah. How are you thinking about that backfield? It's such an interesting one.
So we took Sampson in our main, and Sean made this case, and I'm going to give him the definitely the full credit, but he made the case on some bananas that really sold me on it, which was, and I said this on our pod for anyone who's had a chance to listen to it or may listen to it, but the reason it kind of sold me on is I was thinking about it wrong. But I think when you think of, okay, this team took 2 backs in the same draft, and this is the second back, you think that he's not that exciting of a play. And they took Quinshon Judkins like right at the top of the second round, very high, a lot of commitment. They like Quinshon Judkins. But at these types of prices, he was comparing him to like a DJ Giddens, who he really likes. And his point was, Sampson's not behind a superstar. So he's not Giddens behind Jonathan Taylor. He's not Will Shipley behind Saquon Barkley, right? Like where you're basically saying he has to get injured because that guy's a locked-in superstar. Sampson is a good prospect. He's one of these guys that made this class really deep. And yes, he went a little bit later, but this running back class was known to be incredibly good. And in most classes, I think Siegel said this on the show, in most classes, he would have been a top 5 back and he would have potentially been a day 2 back. He's considered very good. And he is clearly behind Judkins, who they gave way more capital to. But players in Judkins, and Siegel's been a supporter of Judkins, but he's like, players in Judkins, archetype and draft capital bucket and everything can bust. I mean, it's not Jonathan Taylor. It's not Saquon Barkley, et cetera. Like Sampson could just theoretically beat him out, basically.
Yes.
And again, you're talking about an 18th round handcuff, and there's not much other competition for Sampson. So the reason it got me is I was like, yeah, I mean, in the 18th round, the other options we have are handcuffs. And this is a handcuff where the starter is almost certainly the guy that's ahead of him, Judkins. I mean, yeah, Jerome Ford's there too. I guess I said there's no competition. There's Jerome Ford too, but Judkins is almost certainly ahead of him and likely to play ahead of him. And Sampson maybe is like 3rd coming into the season, but he's a 4th round pick and it's uncertain in front of him. He has the potential to eventually be better than Judkins. It wouldn't be crazy. So yeah, I mean, from that perspective, comparing him to some of the handcuffs that have like a clear workhorse ahead of them and they're injury only handcuffs. I mean, then you're like, okay, wait, Sampson's not an injury only handcuff. He's a good profile. He's a 4th round pick, probably because of the strength of the running back class. Could have been a day 2 kind of guy. A fun 18th round pick.
Yeah, no, I think I had been kind of like blocking out the part of the ambiguity of that backfield. And I think is it as ambiguous as the Jags backfield? No, but it still has way more ambiguity than, like you said, those guys who are blocked by a 1st or 2nd round starter. And the other thing about that is the contingent upside is obviously still there, but it's like supercharged in ambiguity, right? Like if you remove one of those 3 backs, the Ford or Judkins or Sampson, I guess, like then the other 2 picks become extremely strong relative to cost as well. So yeah, I like that. And, I think the thing I was trying to protect myself was, Sampson was a guy that a lot of us liked pre-draft, a guy you're drafting in big boards and we all kind of hoped was going to go higher in a better spot. And so you're sometimes like, am I anchored to that kind of old reality with him? And now like things have changed, but when you like zoom out, on that depth chart, yeah, I think it's I like that angle of thinking about the ambiguity more than just the contingent upside.
Right. That's exactly the thing that kind of sold me on it, that I was trying to do justice to Siegel's take, because I just hadn't been thinking about it that way. I was thinking about it like, and I think it's easy to do when there's 2 guys drafted in the same class. You're like, well, they like Judkins more. Judkins definitely ahead of Sampson. Like he's not as definitely ahead of him as, the Jonathan Taylor or the Saquon Barkley examples are definitely ahead of their backups. And when we're talking about an 18th round pick, I mean, I think you got to be making some stabs there.
Yeah, let's read off this full team here. Get your thoughts. 3672, JJ McCarthy, Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones. Our running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, Jordan Mason, Jaydon Blue, Tyler Algier, Dylan Sampson. Wide receivers, Xavier Worthy, Travis Hunter, Jordan Addison, Chris Olave, Michael Pittman Jr., Wan'Dale Robinson, and Jalen Coker. And then 2 tight ends, Hawkinson and Freiermuth. What do you think?
I think it's a super fun team. I'm really glad you got us on the Daniel Jones and brought up the 3rd QB. I think I was thinking 2 QBs, but now that I mean, we had to take McCarthy where we did, pretty far ahead of ADP. And I like McCarthy and we're very into the Vikings, but at the same time, he's a rookie quarterback. He's probably not going to have like a ton of quarterback, like ceiling quarterback scoring. And I guess
always a little bit concerned about that with Lawrence. Although I was pretty high on Lawrence last year, and I think the thesis is even better this year, which is the argument is that he has not had a good passing season. He has not had a good touchdown rate yet. He actually is more mobile from a statistical perspective than I think people realize. If he does have a big year where he's able to throw, just run like a lot of the big breakout passing seasons that we see are guys running a higher TD rate. That's a very a stat that fluctuates a lot. Lawrence has never thrown 30 touchdowns. I mean, I do think he's going to in his career. And Liam Cohen went to Tampa and was a big part of why Baker Mayfield threw like 40 touchdowns last year, So if Lawrence has a 30 touchdown, 35 touchdown season, that's obviously a ceiling situation, but adds the mobility. I think he does have a real ceiling. So I think he's a fun pick here. McCarthy probably has, especially with the players we took, has somewhat of a ceiling too. But Daniel Jones with the mobility gives you that 1 week spike ceiling, and we have the stack and the tie-in. I really think that was a crucial pick for this build to go 3 QBs and get a mobile QB that can give us upside. Whereas we were already betting on McCarthy and Lawrence for sort of stability, but just those two wouldn't have been enough, I don't think.
Yeah. And, the thing, some of the reaches we made, I feel really good about them in like retrospect. You mentioned the McCarthy one. I think Pittman was also a really good call. We knew we were about to hit a portion of the draft board where we were not going to like the wide receivers, and the pick bears it out. We picked at 89 and our next wide receivers at 161. So being able to get that kind of last call there for a while worked out well. And yeah, we kind of had that luxury pick. We used it on Sampson. I think you could have made the case for a third tight end if something was there, but completely splitting nits. I like how this one shook out though. And it's a really fun running back room.
Yeah. The Pittman pick, I really like. 111 targets last year in a season where they didn't really throw a ton anyway. But previously he had 156 the year prior, 141 the year prior. Like this guy, 129 the year prior to that. He's a target earning player. Maybe not an elite upside player, has not had more than 4 receiving TDs for 3 straight years. But as far as the running back start, and then now we only have the 7 receivers, that's like the wide receiver window is closing range. But we grabbed Michael Pittman, who to me should be inside the wide receiver window. He's not an old player. He's another player that's in his prime, that has talent, has shown that. Same with Wan'Dale later, frankly. I think we have a lot of players that I'm confident are good football players, and it's situational stuff that's often driving them down. But in best ball, I love the ambiguous picks, but one of the things that I've definitely learned is you got to just take players that are good, because situations are tough to predict on June 2nd. And it's that kind of anti-fragility argument where good talent, good players, whatever happens, things tend to benefit players that are good enough to stay on the field and operate regardless of what's going on around them. That I think is probably the case for Coker as well. So those 7 receivers to me are they're all guys that are going to run routes in a lot of different types of situations when we think about it probabilistically. The running back, you want to just do a little bit more of the ambiguous stuff, but I think we did that really well. Got a couple rookies. You got to have a couple rookies in every running back build. This is the rookie running back class you want exposure to. The tight ends maybe won't be enough, but it's tight ends on Underdog. I was too into the elite tight end last year. I'm comfortable doing some builds where we're just whatever. We took 2 white tight ends a little bit later. They'll catch some passes.
And I think the only pick, and I'm guessing we both would swap it. I think swapping Algier at pick 152 to Strange, we would have done that because we knew we liked some of the running backs late. Algier wasn't a necessity at that point. Strange as the next tight end there, and you could have still done a Hawkinson, Strange, Freiermuth. So I guess you're looking at a 2v2 of Freiermuth, Algier versus Strange, and any of those other running backs around pick 170, essentially the Giddens, the Rico, the Roshans, Shipley, basically.
And I'm pretty comfortable with that because I don't think I'm as high on Strange as most. I think the Travis Hunter pick it makes the Strange thesis pretty tricky. He's going to just be an ancillary piece in my mind, but because he didn't have a very good prospect profile as far as production and target earning. And last year he ended up earning a lot of targets late in the year. But part of the whole thing, I was a little bit concerned with Brian Thomas, and I'm not now. But as I was writing Stealing Signals weekly, I was like, man, this is setting up perfect for Brian Thomas. And it did. And he got a ton of volume because of it. But everyone got hurt. Christian Kirk got hurt. Gabe Davis got hurt. They were all on IR by the end of the year. all the guys that they thought, Evan Ingram, the other one, they thought were going to be a part of that offense were all injured. And so it was just Brian Thomas basically. And then Brenton Strange emerged and like Parker Washington. I mean, that's when Brenton Strange was producing. And now as the offseason, was progressing, they got rid of all those guys and it was like, okay, well, it's just going to be Brian Thomas again. Once you add Travis Hunter, I just think the Brenton Strange thing is like, he's now just like, an NPC, like he's just this extra dude.
Yeah. I guess my only counter would be if we get the breakout from the Jags offense and Lawrence takes the leap, we know that these NPC tight ends can come along for the ride in big games. It's the Cade Otton thesis, the Dalton Schultz thesis. And yeah, you are paying a little bit more of a price tag for Strange because of his youth and because we haven't, fully seen who he is like we have with Otton and Schultz. But to me, it's more like, okay, a Lawrence team, let's get a double stack with him and just say, hey, the touchdowns are going to be flowing and maybe Strange, lucks into a couple 2 TD games when we need it.
That's, I think, a pretty good sell job. I think that's a good point. I'm not as best ball. I haven't done my best ball stretching this off season yet. I'm not as best ball minded right now, but I do think that's a great point. And
honestly, though, I like, I like chatting it up with my friends and drafting with my friends, but I also like getting the different things because you can get too much in the mode too of like, being like too structural or just too agnostic. And then it's nice to, get over here with some of the Sean Ranks and the Gretch takes on these guys. So I like blending all that stuff together. And sometimes it's like a lot of the tight ends in this range start to look like the same player to me. And so to hear you make a case for Freiermuth, I like getting that input. And I'm sure the chat and the viewers do as well. So thank you for that today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. It's a blast getting to chat with you again. I really do like this team. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yes, we got it tagged here. We can track this throughout the year. We'll definitely we'll get you on Ship Chasing to draft another one as well in the near future. Let the people know where to check you out. Obviously, Stealing Bananas podcast feed, Stealing Signals. I'm sure you're in like your final, hibernation period before really letting it rip.
That's right. Yeah, I've been starting the projection process a little bit. But yeah, I haven't written a ton over the last few weeks, been finishing up some of the off-season stuff. I always get springtime allergies this time of year, and it's like, man, it's tough to write when I'm getting that way. But I have been feeling the pressure to get some content out. I got a lot of stuff it's a lot of half-baked ideas, so it's going to start coming quick once I get those fully baked from the newsletter, bengretch.substack.com. And then, yeah, we've been doing Stealing Bananas, continuing to rip all that stuff. So yeah, check it out.
Yep. I just dropped that in the chat, throwing it up here on screen, bengretch.substack.com. Make sure you guys are checking that out. Also wanted to mention a promo that I believe just got posted here from our friends over at Underdog for the marathon contest. So this is the cumulative points contest. All weeks matter the same. Just the highest scoring team wins, 100K to first. They're running a promo right now. If you enter 7 teams into the marathon by Wednesday, June 4th at midnight, so 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, June 4th, you get $25 in bonus cash there. So 7 entries of 15 apiece. They'll give you the amount to essentially get a free BBM. Buy 7, get a BBM free. Sounds like a pretty good deal.
7 entries, about, I think that's $105 for 25 in free cash. That's a pretty good deal.
Yes. Yeah, I was just trying to check my own math there. You are right. $105, get 25 back. So yes, very cool promo there from Underdog Drafts. And if you guys didn't notice as well, I'm sure you have, we do have some Superflex contests. In the Lobby is the new one that dropped. I think we're going to do that on Off and On the Clock tomorrow. There you go. And make sure you get your pugs in as well. This is a $12 3-entry max. I maxed my final one this morning, but all kinds of goodness in the lobby. And yeah, thanks again to all of you guys hanging out. Love doing Best Ball Breakfast. Thank you to Kyle Dvorchak for subbing in for Pat, obviously for Leone, you guys for hanging out. If you're new, I'm here every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern, doing 4 different drafts, solo draft, Leone, Crane, and a rotating guest. And then also want to mention again, Wednesday, Best Ball Bash, the new show I'm doing where someone from the chat who is a YouTube member can come on and draft a BBM team with me. And then we roll right into the randomizer. Our guest this week is our friend Denny Carter. So very much looking forward to that. Otherwise, have a great rest of the week. Join us in the Deposit Kingdom Discord. And if for some reason you have made it to the 4-hour mark of a stream of 4 Underdog drafts and have not signed up for Underdog, you can get up to $1,000 deposit bonus with promo code Pete. We'll see you guys next time on Best Ball Breakfast. Peace.